Right, it is 6:30. Let's call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
East Ward Alderman John Quinn.
Here.
East Ward Alderman Jason Cunningham.
Here.
Mayor Natalie McNish.
Here.
West Ward Alderman Robert Boggs.
Here.
West Ward Alderman Stacy Lee.
Here. If you would please rise for a moment of silent prayer or reflection, followed by the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Board members, in your packet, you have minutes from January 13th and January 20th meetings. Do we have any questions, comments, or concerns on either of those minutes? If not, I'm looking for a motion and second for approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next up is expenditures and financial reports. We also have two packets of information that are included in here. There are a few things that I'm going to call out and kind of go through as we work through this. So there are two memorandums prepared by Monica to try to bring out some of those high dollar or significant items. A large portion of those in the 20th is the bonds that are due at the first of every year. So there are several of our funds that the expenditures automatically go to 50% on January 10, 15, right in that area. And that is because we have those large bond payments that are due in there. Other items that are in here, I wanted to kind of call out some continued work we are doing at Prairie Lane. This has been ongoing for Sam 4 years now.
Yeah.
You will see two expenditures in here for concrete and for equipment on the February 4th memorandum. There's another, I think, 2 entries in the other one for concrete. So just in the first 2 months of this year, we've already taken care of a good chunk of what we had budgeted for this road. Unfortunately, this road, every time we work on it, seems to require more than we planned. So, Sam, would we be able to do an update, an overview of that entire project with Mel?
Sure.
Okay. Stacy, you were involved with that whole thing, but the other 3 of you did not have that opportunity. It is a very unique situation, in my opinion. We dump more money on that one particular residential road every year than we do pretty much any other road in the city. And I want to bring you up to date on why and what's been spent, and use that education to start making some decisions on whether that's where we want to continue focusing our workforce and our resources, or if we have other areas we need to focus on as well. So right now, that's been our main focus, other than those specific construction projects we've called out, the Banning overlay, the Elm Street extension, and this year, the Marshall, which is all really use of bond proceeds, not use of budgetary funds. All the rest of it has been directed at Pleasant Prairie since I started here and before. So I think it would be useful to have Mel kind of do that. I was sitting in the crowd the day Mel did the big presentation, and my jaw dropped, and I learned a whole lot on how you build a street and how you don't build a street. And so I think that information would be helpful in order for us to make those decisions. I also wondered, could we add the Prairie Lane project and all its historical cost into the project report?
Yes.
Okay. And I'd like to include the engineering in that as well.
Okay.
Just so that it gives you a quick picture as you flip through here, where you don't have to go pick out all these, like this batch of expenditures has 4 different things in it. It'll give you one report you can go to and really get a picture of what we're spending on that road. For me, it's the #1 road I get questions on. Not really sure why. It's unique that people even are able to get in contact with me because a lot of them don't know who I am. But if I'm gonna get a question, it's gonna be on Prairie Light. So I'd like to get that information put out there. The other things I wanted to call to your attention is the 2021 budgeted growth area for the mini excavator is officially purchased and it's trailer and it's here. Okay. The other thing I'll call to your attention in the second board packet is the purchase of the F-550. We talked about that in the last full meeting and authorized Sam to purchase that. You want to tell them how that ended up working out?
Yeah, so we, you guys had authorized just a little over $30,000 for that truck. And so I made an offer a little bit less than what you guys had authorized up to. Long story short, we purchased the truck. I think the next bidder on there was, I don't know, $3,000 or $4,000 less. And so it was in the right ballpark. And so I still feel, of course, we haven't used the truck, right? It doesn't have a bed on it. We'll talk about that later on the agenda, but at this point, I feel like it was a good purchase.
So we've got that and you'll see that expense in here too. So just because we have been asking for several asset purchases here recently, I wanted to draw your attention to the ones we've actually completed and not just talked about. The other question I had, Monica, is the bypass elimination project officially closed?
I don't know if there was.
So the bypass. And that's Franco.
Yeah.
They are paid and we've have some funds owed to CMT.
Okay, so I just was trying to figure out why it was still on, it's floating on the report and I wanted to know where it was.
There's a little bit left in their contract that we have not paid yet.
Okay. If you'll flip to the page that pulls out, the great big huge one. This is a summary of, I don't look at the month to date too much, but year to date, this is the 2021, basically performance metrics of how our city staff monitored the budget. And I, for one, would like to commend them, our department heads, our staff for really taking care of business here. If you'll look at the expenses on the right-hand side, you'll notice that every single one of those is under 100%. Not a single budget that we have went over. And I think that's worthy of commendation. If you look on the right-hand side, you will see that most of our revenue lines went over. And so our staff are doing a fantastic job of revenue maximization and expense negotiation is generally what it ends up being, but a lot of times they might be robbing Peter to pay Paul, or it could be that they're going without employees. That seems to be the general rule. They go without an employee in order to be able to do something else. But nonetheless, I did want to point that out. At the end of the year, not a single one of our funds went over budget. The last thing I wanted to call to your attention, right behind that, you have the adjusted journal entries, and there were more than normal and they were higher amounts. And so the only thing I wanted to say was this is a normal end of year accounting procedure where we have to go back and take care of all the strange oddities and move things into the correct funds in order for Monica to be able to do the financial statements that we will get to later in this budget or in this agenda. So there's some big numbers on there and there's some entries for June made in December. And the reason those were made is those are us clearing out those books so that we have a clear balance in order to put in our financial statements. Outside of those items, are there any questions, comments, or concerns in expenditures and financial reports? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion in a second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next on the agenda. I can hear myself, that's just weird. Okay, is departmental reports. You do have a couple departmental reports in here. We have talked in the past about developing additional departmental reports that will give us a better feel for the activity occurring within City Hall and the various departments without dumping all of our work order information into a report, right? So we're trying to find that happy balance in there. I've challenged Sam that next month for the first meeting in March, that you will start seeing some of these reports. And please give your feedback on them, what you like and what you don't like. We will work through that the best we can. But these two are in your packet for review. Do you have any questions or comments on those? All right, we'll go to the proclamation. It is Ronald McDonald House Week in the city of Marshfield, Missouri. Whereas Springfield's two Ronald McDonald houses have provided a home away from home and an invaluable source of hope and comfort for families of seriously ill children who must travel far from home for medical treatment. And whereas the two Ronald McDonald houses located in Springfield, Missouri, allow their guests to maintain close contact with their serious ill children by providing a secure and supportive environment at no required cost. And whereas the Ronald McDonald House near Cox South and the house at Mercy Kids have served the needs of 529 Webster County families, 215 of which are residents of Marshfield, Missouri. And whereas on Tuesday, January 25th, 2022, 69 McDonald's restaurants and various other locations will begin showing their support by asking customers to share their heart by adopting a $1, $5, and $20 donation to the Ronald McDonald Charities of the Ozarks through the Share a Heart campaign. And whereas the following generous contributors, have provided sponsorship funding and underwritten the cost of the Share a Heart campaign: McDonald's of the Ozarks, Great Southern Bank, Mid-Am Metal Forming, and KY3 Television. And whereas McDonald's of Marshfield is a participant of the Share a Heart campaign, which will continue through February 28, 2022. Now, therefore, I, Natalie McNish, Mayor of the City of Marshfield, Missouri, do hereby proclaim February 14th through February 20th, 2022 as Ronald McDonald House Week, and testimony thereof signed by myself. All right, we will enter into unfinished business, and we'll do this one real fast. We're going to table this again. We still do not have detailed information that meets the standards of our diligent city administrator, and so we will hopefully hear more next week. So that brings us into new business, and we have Randy Clare with us. Sam, would you like to introduce our guest and our topic?
Sure. So Randy and Jeff are gonna talk on this, but we've got a pre-development team that meets with any kind of development that comes in to the city or is wanting to do anything, and so consists of myself and Steve and Rick and Richard and whoever else is appropriate to have in on that. A lot of times Scott Hansen. Randy's going to talk to you about wanting to put a restaurant in. They're going to be talking about some different items and some different things that issues that we've talked to them about from the staff level. So this is a little bit out of the ordinary, but I explained to them that you guys could not take any action, that you guys couldn't vote, but there are some this is a unique request for the location and for what they're wanting to do. And so I told them if they wanted to come and feel the temperature in the room and get some PR for their business that they're wanting to do and get some feedback from you all, whenever that way they would have some ideas of what you guys would be looking for, because ultimately this will come back to you all for a couple different reasons. If they continue to move forward the way they are, it's probably going to come back in front of you for a rezone, and we'll get into that, and I'll let them go through their presentation, and then Steve and I'll kind of explain what that change is. But just wanted to get it out in front of you so that you can see the location. It is very similar to a request that we had where we did deny a liquor license, and so wanted to give them an opportunity to kind of put their business plan together according to what you got, any feedback that you guys might give, so that when it does come before you, they have an opportunity to address your concerns at that point. So with that, I'm going to get Jeff set up here to where I think he's got a PowerPoint presentation.
Well, I'm saying good, man. Thanks, Campbell, for, letting us come in and really kind of pick the brains a little bit, see what we need to do to possibly get this venture off the ground. Most of you know, I'm probably the premier historian here in town. I love local, history. I love local pictures, et cetera, and I like to preserve it. I bought the condo building. I don't know if you all know where the condo building is or not. It sits right at the corner of Jackson and Clay Street. It's the old gray stucco building. Foundation Church is in it right now. I noticed, probably close to a year and a half ago that it looked like the construction and everything on the church had kind of come to a stop. And I suspected they were probably in a little bit of a financial restraints, especially with what COVID and everything going on. So anyway, I contacted the preacher and asked him if he would be interested in selling the building. He said, just so happens we just talked about it last week, So anyway, we put a deal together and I bought the building. My intentions were really at first just to rent the building. If you invest any money in CDs, there's nothing there anymore. So, but in the conversation, my friend over here and partner, Jeff White, he said, of course, I told the church they could stay as long as they wanted to. Back in December, they notified me that they were no longer going to be able to stay. Their congregation had dwindled to the point that they didn't even have enough money hardly to, in ties in order to pay the utilities. So they would be leaving. So Jeff and I got to talking about it, and he said, what do you think about a restaurant? And I said, a high-end restaurant, something very nice, something with linen tablecloths, linen napkins. And we kind of got to brainstorming a little bit, and we came up with the idea of something that's similar to, some of you will remember Riverside at Ozark. You felt very special when you went into Riverside, or Candlestick Inn at Branson. Both of them were, like wait staff and black slacks and white chef jackets, or vests. I mean, it was very special feeling. So we've made the decision that we would like to approach this venture in that manner. Jeff is an award-winning chef. If you've never ate any of his food, you are missing out. But with the idea of a high-end restaurant comes the fact that most people that go to one expect to be able to get a drink. So, we'd like to come talk to you a little bit about a liquor license. Yes, we know that there was one down the road that had been denied, but we've got a little bit of a different situation. Our hours are going to be extremely different. But I tell you what, with all of that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. He's the master of the rest of this, and I'm going to get out of his way.
Thank you, guys. Thanks and sorry for the interruption. I didn't have my Zoom settings set, so you got to hear yourself twice, but appreciate your time. My name's Jeff. I'm a almost lifelong resident of Marshfield, except for the years that I was in the military, moved away and came back in 2006. So happy to be back home. The restaurant itself, I wasn't listening to the whole thing. Did he tell you where the location was?
Yeah.
Okay. So we kicked around a name. We really didn't want to tie ourselves to a certain type of cuisine. So since it's kind of on Jackson Street, although it's officially on Clay Street, we named it the Jackson Grill just to kind of keep it generic. We'd come up with just the Jackson and the Jackson this and the Jackson that, but that's basically our logo. That's kind of the look of the building, hopefully whenever it's completed. And moving forward, we want to basically be a contemporary casual, not necessarily fine dining. We don't, if you wear jeans and a t-shirt, we're fine with that. We just don't want, and I hate to say it, we got enough biscuits and gravy and cashew chicken around for everybody. We wanted to be a little bit different. And in doing so, bring some dishes on a quarterly basis that maybe you crave, maybe you knew, and we can develop a menu on a quarterly basis that can change. Right now, what we're kicking around is a wood-fired pizza oven, actually a grill, a wok station and kind of fusing a bunch of different cuisine together. But the two being Creole, Cajun, and Asian, no one's done that. And I kind of have a specialty in both. So, and wood-fired pizza as well. So it seems crazy, but I think we can make it work. And the idea being Friday night, very casual, Saturday, the full dinner, Sunday brunch. So we're not talking about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're only going to be open in the evenings except for brunch on Sunday. So we shouldn't be much of an impact as far as parking or other businesses and you know, conflicting with any of that. Randy touched a little bit on the preserving the history. I don't know how much you guys know about the building, but the building was built prior to the tornado, or we call them tornadoes now, the cyclone. And it was rebuilt in 1882.
Cyclone came through on April the 18th, 1880 and leveled the building down to just partial one wall. It was reconstructed in 1881, dedicated in 1882, and been going full force since.
So we're aware of that, obviously, and in fact, we embrace that and we love it. The fact that we can keep a building that has that kind of history active in some capacity is important to Randy and myself. I actually went to church there when I was a kid, so and cooked in the kitchen on Easter. This is actually a video that's not going to load because I'm slaving off of my phone, but that actually tornado goes by there. I kind of did a background tornado behind the building, but that's what the building looked like after the tornado. If you guys are familiar with the Finley and Ozark, that's kind of the idea of what we're doing. The Finley's just off the square as well in Ozark, nice dining area, good food, classy place. That's kind of what we're trying to model this after. And by the way, there's lots of them around. Simply because a lot of the churches in the United States today have moved into bigger buildings outside of town. So it left a lot of these older buildings vacant. The actual layout, you can't really see it. The big square down at the bottom is the dining room. The top right square is the kitchen. And then there's like a waiting area slash service bar in the back and maybe an overflow. We don't really know yet what we're going to actually do. And I wish I had a way to share the picture of what it looks like on the inside. The inside really looks way better than the outside. If you guys have been in there, show hands. I don't know. Recently, it looked a lot better than what I anticipated it looking. So the cuisine itself, again, it's going to be all over the board. That's actually a picture of the pizza in one of my wood-fired pizza ovens. And there's some graphics that aren't going to show up on here because hang on just a second. Yeah, we're going to basically do, at least initially, wood-fired pizza, fired entrees, fire grilled steaks, full salad bar, akin to Jim's Steakhouse, so to speak. And that would be included with every entree. It won't be extra unless you just want the salad bar. Then there'll be a price for that. So the little piece there at the bottom, I've competed in the World Food Championships and won. I've been Sutter Home Burger Contest, won that. I mean, I know food and I know business. I'm not saying it's going to be a home run, but I believe that Marshfield really has wanted something like this for years because it's the conversation that almost everyone has at some point, at least once a month. And we want to kind of fill that void. Some of the specifics on, just come up, hang on just a minute. Must be a big slide. The parking, I know parking is an issue. Do we want to get into that right now? Or I think this is a picture of that, but I can't, hang on, let me go to the next slide and see. Yeah, so it is, give it a second to load. I hope I didn't lose my, oh, there again, there's some of the stuff that we kind of expect to put on our menu. Scallops at the top, a French 2-bone pork chop grilled with Mongolian sauce and stuff like that. So that's what that was. I took the time to take some Google images, and I wish I could zoom in on this, but the building on the left, or the picture on the left, is actually the building in the center of a 300-foot circle. I was really surprised when I looked at that there weren't very many homes and, impacted personal, residential type homes. The other pictures are close up of the property going north, south, and west, but not east, because everything east is pretty much commercial anyway. The way I look at it, depending on how you measure it, there's 2 homes that would be impacted, and they're the ones just to the west of the old phone building. That really, there's nothing else that's affected that's not commercial. So
It does take in, the Dickey House, but that's already kind of commercial zoned and already, a business there also. And I've said everything else with the exception of the church across the street, Crossbridge. I have spoke to, Brother Jeff Mann, and he says, I am not going to object to that. That we all eat at restaurants that, that serve alcohol, and he says, I have no objection to it. So we pretty much, had his blessing. And
one of the things that Randy and I've talked about, we're not big drinkers. We don't want this to be a bar. We want it to a place to go and have a nice meal that you can get a drink at. The prices on the drinks are going to be such that you're not going to want to sit in there and drink all day anyway, because it's just not what it is. But if you want to have a glass of wine or you want to have a beer, it's going to be there.
And one of the things is the dining room, we're going to have those chairs. We want those tables turning over.
Mhm.
We're not going to allow somebody just to sit there all night. And the service bar area in the back, we're not putting chairs in. We'll have a couple of tables that people can stand at, because it's basically just a holding area until the table is ready for people to move out front.
So on the next slide, I did count public parking, and apologize for the double type there. I'm not sure what that is. But within walking distance of the potential restaurant, there's 140 parking spots that are public parking. Some of that street parking, some of it's public parking. That doesn't include the church across the street or their parking lot, or is it Maul's Place now? What's it?
Yeah.
Is it? Doesn't include that. We want to be good neighbors. We realize that, if we're going to be there, we don't want to have half the town mad at us and the other half happy with us. So this will show a picture of that here in just a minute. Kind of highlighted it from a Google Earth picture and showed you where I got the majority of the parking would be what I consider to be the old Chevy garage or the city parking lot. I estimated there to be about 74 parking spots in there. That's the bulk of it. And we've even potentially talked about having on a Saturday night, I wouldn't think it would be beyond Saturday night, but have some valet type parking where you can drop people off. Give this thing one more second here before I jump forward. And by saying that, those parking lots, it's the old Cunningham's building or the old, help me out with what it was last, hardware store. There's parking on Clay Street, both sides, and then the street that's used to Webster County Printing's on, what's it?
Yeah, Marshall Street.
Those two each have 16 spots, the MFA building and the one, out of all those parking lots, the way that you can egress all those parking lots, the total different directions you can go is like 20, as opposed to just looking at our back parking lot, which would only be 6 spots, and you could go maybe 4 different directions, left, right, and then left, right the other way. So there shouldn't be any issue with traffic because of the time frame that we're open and also the different ways that people can leave. I don't see that there would ever be any issue with traffic in that case.
Downtown Marshfield is pretty much dead after 5 o'clock on Friday. Saturday mornings we have some traffic, but at noon on Saturday there's nothing going on. So we don't feel like we're going to impact anyone in the area. We're not going to be any obstacle to anybody.
How many, Steve answers, how many parking spots would you recommend for a restaurant like that?
Well, it's going to depend on the number of seats that they have. And so our code says you have to have, for every 2.5 seats, you have to have 1 parking space. So let's say, for example, let's say you have 95 seats, then you'd be required to have 39 parking spaces. I don't know what their seat count is. I don't know if they've gotten to that point yet or not.
And right now we're looking at like 80.
Okay. Also, the thing to keep in mind here is that this is actually zoned B1. The Dickey House is B2. The church across the street is B2, and the Historic Society is B1. Brooks is B1. And then the rest of that's B2, and then everything else is B2. And because of that, that was one of the things that they were going to look at as an avenue to look at changing the zoning of this to a B2. Because as a B1, there's no way they can get the parking required, and nobody could get the parking required for that particular building. Even if a church went in there now, by our code, they would have to provide the parking. And for a church, it's one parking space for every 3 seats or 20 inches of a pew, whichever way you look at it. So what we're thinking is, because of its location to the downtown area and what's around it, that it would make sense to go ahead and change the zoning to a B2. And then, because it would be a B2, the parking then wouldn't become an issue, because otherwise they'll have to ask for a variance for the parking. There's no way. And what they alluded to was they could have 6 spaces behind. And we talked about that, and that those spaces would be the handicap spaces so that people could walk. They've also talked about putting a ramp in so that people can get in, and there's already restrooms in there, public restrooms that are handicap accessible. So it would become an accessible space, which actually right now it's not, because there's steps to get into that building. So I think with those improvements, they would do the application. Of course, that would come back to you to approve or disapprove. And then the fact that we do have parking, on-street parking lots, we don't know if those will always be there. So that's something that, we have to take into consideration. But because of that and the nature and they're going to be open on a Friday evening, a Saturday evening, a Sunday brunch, we don't have the traffic let's just say on our square that would compete with parking spaces. So that's why we're kind of looking at it like that. So to answer your question, it's a long way to answer your question. Depending on the number of seats, it could be 40 spaces, and there's absolutely no way that you could get that many on there.
Right.
And even as a church, you can't do it.
And that's why we wanted to bring it, that's why we told them to bring it before you guys, because they're looking at making an investment. And it's kind of got similar characteristics to other things, saying that, there's no room for stacking when you pull off of Jackson Street. I mean, you turn off of Jackson Street and you're in the front door. So before they move too far forward, I told Randy that I would put it before you guys, so you guys could talk about what concerns you might have, or what they might need to consider in order to be move forward.
Randy, what would your brunch hours be on Sunday?
Brunch hours on Sunday, we're talking 11 to 2.
How are you going to keep your traffic out of Mom's parking lot?
Well, that's a question that I don't really have an answer for. We're going to promote, that there's park over, in the other lot across the tracks. I can't say that some of the church people might not park over there. I don't know, but it is something that, on Sunday that we are concerned about. But we just, I said, other than promoting that, our parking is over here, like I said, we don't want to hurt anybody. We're trying to find a food that is different than everybody else in town. We're just trying to be good neighbors, and like I said, we're certainly not going to go out at the intentions of hurting anybody. But it's kind of like in the reverse, it's kind of like our handicap that we've got back there in the back. I don't know how I'm going to keep Mom's, crowd from parking back there too.
Have you asked them for permission to park? To use their parking?
No, we haven't talked to anyone yet. We didn't really want to get too far out in front of our skis on this until we talked to you guys. So because if we let the city know, then everyone gets upset, and you just look like an idiot. So we didn't really, I mean, after today, and you know, we discussed this, we may, you know, I'm a patron there too. I'm a lifelong resident. We've told these guys the first time we met, we don't want to be, we want, to the degree that you can with humans, we want to be the people that are willing to work with the community in any capacity. So
I definitely agree with the B2 rezoning. The main issue on liquor license here will be the proximity to a religious organization. We don't have the school in this one where we did on the other.
How close are you to Imagination Station and Bridges?
They're farther than 300 feet.
Yeah.
300 feet stops about the corner of Clay. Maple. Yeah, thank you. Right. Yeah.
So they should be okay there. When we were doing the banning overlay, I remember us going ahead and running some tap-ins for, wasn't it Crossbridge that's building out there? Is there any movement on that?
I guess I can talk about that since I'm designing their building.
Okay, that would help.
Yeah.
That you have,
So they are moving forward on.
they are moving forward on that project. So even the religious organization that is currently neighboring this property may not be there in another year and a half, two.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a fair, I
Yeah.
mean, construction times, what they are right now, I'll give you lots of legroom. But has anybody heard about what they're gonna do with that other building? The
Their
current,
existing building, Randy's gonna buy. Isn't that right? And he's
That's
gonna,
what we wanted to sell.
Okay.
That's as far as it's gone.
and he's gonna put a wedding venue in there, right?
Well, that's-
And so then they can have the receptions at the restaurant, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of what we talked.
Okay.
We worked,
Okay.
city staff worked this all out for us.
Yes.
the other day.
We've got more businesses coming
It is
in.
exactly what we had talked about. Yes.
okay.
We're business
Oh.
friendly.
Well, I wanted to walk through that process because I think when we're talking about the liquor license, which is what is on our agenda to discuss, that is the factor that you have to decide on. The last one that we did deny was not only at a church, it was also at a school. And the major issue that the board brought up was traffic concerns at that very persnickety intersection.
I've got a picture of that. I brought that just in case you touched on it. You want me to bring it up so everyone can see?
Now, it's okay. We beat that one pretty good. So I
Did you?
think we've all got a mental image. So I would like to hear the board's comments, if you have any that you would like to share, specifically regarding the fact that this will be next door to a church.
Since they've talked to Jeff and Jeff was not against it, in the other situation, the church was against it and I do live in that area and there's not a lot of traffic on that street. So I definitely don't see it as the same problem that there was before. So I wouldn't have any necessary issues with that situation.
And of course, if they sold the church and it became another church, they would already be there. So they would know what they were coming into.
And again, the board's under no obligation here, right? I mean, it is just a friendly conversation. And so obviously things can change when we send those letters out. Just want to make sure that there's a full disclaimer there.
And get back to the was it Ma's question? I didn't see who asked the question. Was it you? I'm sorry. You know, us paying for signs that say Ma's parking only, violators will be towed. We pay for that. I think just to be friendly. I mean, we don't want that either. We don't want them to be threatened by us, but I don't know how much of the mix of Sunday is, they're open 7 days, we're open 3. At first, we're probably going to get a ton more people because we're new. That's just how things work. I don't know if you guys know it, but the Domino's here in town was like #1 in the country for like a month after they opened in the entire country. But let me go back and talk about the brunch if you got a minute, or is it too much? Okay. The brunch is going to be a set fee, come in and eat. It's not really a buffet, but it kind of is a buffet. We'll have a live station with omelets and like breakfast taco bar. It's not going to be a come in and order biscuits and gravy, although there'll probably be biscuits and gravy, but it's not gonna be a price point that you're gonna want to do every weekend, probably. It's gonna be in the neighborhood of about $15 a head. That could drop to 13, depending on the, you know, food costs have just gone through the roof. So it's not gonna be a fit for everybody. That being said, I don't know what else we could do, but if you think of anything, we'd be accommodating for sure on what it would be. We don't want to be the type of people that walk in and just say, we don't care,
So
because we do care.
would fencing be a possibility?
With what?
Fencing?
Gating it across there.
Well, I'm just thinking that, I mean, right now.
That'd actually
I
help a
know
lot.
They drive through your property
Mhm.
and there's no access back there. So if you put a fence up,
As long as the fire department doesn't have a problem with it, I
they
mean,
they shouldn't have a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just an option,
Mhm.
an
Yeah,
option to,
That would be a solution.
Yeah, because your lines go all the
yeah.
way.
Yeah, because you go all the way to the
to
railroad.
keep people from driving
Property.
through, I think would be nice too, because I mean, you don't want it to become a super highway back there, and that would,
Any question that members of the board might have, representatives? Okay, thank you very much for your time and for your interest in investing in Marshfield.
Oh, yes. I like to keep it at home.
Get
Buy
that?
another building.
And I love
Get
to
that
see
wedding
preservation
chapel.
at the condo building.
And it looked good.
Yeah. Yeah. And next time, if you want to bring taste samples,
Samples.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
that's. always
We're
fun.
good at that.
I know.
Okay. All right, let's move forward in our agenda. The next item up on the agenda is the website design and development proposal and agreement. And I believe we have Mark and Sam presenting on this. I don't know who's got point, but
I can take the point on this one. This is for the website, the new website build and design for the city. We went through the RFQ process. Civic Plus was the choice that came out of that RFQ process. And now we've been in negotiations with them. In fact, we've got Hector Ortega, who has been our representative throughout the process here with us tonight to kind of make a presentation of the package that we've kind of negotiated into. Civic Plus has 3 levels of websites. They have a basic website, they have a premium website, and they have an ultimate website. We're in that middle tier with what we're looking at and proposing for this package to enter contract in on. I won't take too much thunder away from Hector because he's the expert. I will tell you 3 things that staff really like about this package and this build that we're looking at. 1, changing and updating the website is a user-friendly process with this particular company and this particular platform, meaning that we'll be able, a couple of website people here within the city, say myself or Sam or whomever, is deemed those people, will be able to make changes easily to that website, sort of like a change you'd make on Facebook or Instagram or something of that nature. A lot of the websites out there, you access those changes from the back end and you see a bunch of code and you see a bunch of language and you make the changes that you're supposed to make. And then you've got to go back in and log in to see the front side to look at what those changes look like. With this website, you can make changes on the front end. And as you make changes, you can see what it will look like on the website before you go ahead and engage that where the public can see it. And that is a great feature. 2, Civic Plus offers just almost unrelenting support. They are there for us and almost 24/7. I mean, they are very, very available. And then 3, with this middle tier package and then the higher package, they offer a redesign at 0 cost to us once every 4 years. So as we design this first website, if things change and designs and color schemes and things like that, we can always stay relevant. So those are 3 tips that I know that staff liked. But without further ado, I'll turn it over to the expert, and Hector's got a presentation for you, I think.
And if I'm not mistaken, Hector, that's all you guys do is municipal, right? Is do government websites.
Correct. Yeah, all we do is local government. We started with websites. We've now expanded and we offer a multitude of different software solutions. Mark was exploring one of them, which is Civic Rec, which is our recreation online management system. But you're right, Sam. All we do is government.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate the introduction and pleasure to be here, at least virtually. I have a presentation, and so I will be sharing my screen. Let me know if you're able to see that.
Yep.
Should be red
Yep.
banners at Civic Plus. All
You're good to
right.
go.
Perfect. Well, first off, thank you to the board and mayor for taking the time and allowing me to present. This is going to be a very short presentation. I do maybe 2 or 3 presentations via PowerPoint a year. I try to keep it very minimal. So I'll take note this is one of them. So here at Civic Plus, I mentioned a little bit earlier, we did start with Civic Engage about 20 years ago, building local government websites. Over the course of those 20 years, we have now expanded our range, and now we offer a multitude of different solutions on an integrated platform. What this means is if the city of Marshfield tends to grow, as we're hoping it does, right? We just heard a presentation about a new restaurant. If the needs for local government changes and you want to streamline a few of those services or a few of those processes that you're doing at the moment, we have solutions in place that would allow you to be able to do that. Our reach and our range, we are now serving over 7,500 local governments across the US. We are the #1 provider in government websites. We have over 20 years of experience doing this, and we are built for local governments by the experts in local governments. In fact, many of those that are staffed here at Civic Plus have a background working, say, in a city, in a county, in a town, or interacting in some way extensively with a local government. So all of our solutions are meant specifically for you. Mark alluded to our customer support, and we do. We have award-winning customer support. I'll touch on that in just a bit, but I wanted to show you just a few very brief statistics here. If you call in, you're going to be on the phone for maybe about a minute and 44 seconds waiting for someone. If you chat with us, it's about a 2-minute wait to be able to get in contact. Our support team is not overseas. It is located here in the US. Our home office is Manhattan, Kansas. So if there's any college football folks in the room, that is where K-State is. If you're a KU fan, then we'll have a separate conversation. But all of our support team is located there within our Manhattan office, and they really are absolutely amazing. I've sat in on those calls. I've seen them interact with, chats and requests that have come through, and they really are amazing. In fact, there's a Stevie Award, which is it's a worldwide recognition. About 45 different nations participate in this. More than 2,700 nominations come in, and continuously we are amongst the top 3, which is really interesting because last year, #1 and 2 it was Dell in #1. I believe Civic Plus was #2, and then HP was #3. So it's just crazy to see that a small company based out of Manhattan, Kansas is providing this award-winning support at a tier that is completely not in the scale of other organizations. In the Missouri area, we do have over 55 different clients. I've listed just a few there. And the enhancements that are in your current project. I've got a little screen grab of the city of Carthage, Missouri, who has recently just gone live. It was, I believe, 2 weeks ago or so that they went live. So you'll notice on the homepage, there is their just landing page. But then their Parks and Recreation has their department header. What this does is it gives that department their own look and feel, provides a very seamless integration with a familiar landscape as they're going through and navigating through the website, but it's very specific to that department. The city of Marshfield will have that as well for the Parks and Recreation. That way we can elevate and really showcase this department. In conversations, there is the possibility of the Civic Plus chatbot. Mark has 2 agreements in hand, one showcasing the pricing with and one without chatbot. This is not a chatbot that the city would man. This is an actual artificial intelligent chatbot that is recognizing and receiving questions and building pathways to find that information. So in a matter of seconds, if someone asks a question, they're able to receive that answer without having to pick up the phone, call in, email somebody, or just get frustrated with their experience. I'll pause momentarily. Is there any questions so far with what I've covered? If not, I can jump into a front-end example here real quick. I'll take silence as no. All right. So I alluded to the city of Carthage, Missouri. They have gone live not too long ago. Our goal when developing a website is to make it user-friendly. Now, this is in a twofold street. It's on the staff side, being able to update that content in a very quick and an efficient process, but also folks that are visiting the website. Could be constituents, or it could be a business that's maybe thinking about coming to the area, or it could even just be a family that's trying to move away from the California area, West Coast, and move, relocate. And so that information, we live in a day and age where we need to access it quickly, or we start to get frustrated. So our mission is, when we're developing this website, for you to have that information in 1 to 2 clicks at the absolute most, right? 1 to 2 clicks. So one of the ways that we achieve that is by having what we call mega menus. So as I hover my mouse, I'm not clicking on anything just yet, but it's populating, if you will, a billboard of just information. This last one here is a how do I. It's one of our best practices that we've developed over the 20 years that we've been building municipal websites, and it's building a sentence. How do I apply for maybe a rummage sale permit? Or how do I sign up for a bike registration? And within 1 click, it's taking me to an online form that I can fill out. This is being routed directly to the police department. And if my bicycle ever gets stolen and they find it, it is right there. They're able to find it. Go back to the home page. I'll click to the Parks and Recreation to just highlight the big difference. And you're going to see a color shift. You're going to see the content now shift very specifically, to the Parks and Recreation Department. So this will be a way for the city of Marshfield to showcase the different parks in the area, the facilities, if there's any rentals going on, or really just to showcase some information about the parks within the area. The design aspect to it really is up to the city of Marshfield. I'll point the city of Warrensburg, Missouri. They chose kind of a very pretty layout, in my opinion, with these different kind of icons. As you hover, it'll do a little animation. The design is up to you. Mark mentioned that you are in the middle tier, so there are going to be some design limitations, but not many folks get to them. It just gets to a point where, how crazy do you want to get? Do you want to build a complete website from scratch, or do we want to build off of some inspiration from other websites? And that's exactly the package that you're at here. So you're not in a template. You are able to branch out, create really anything you'd like. So I'll pause again for some questions if there are any. All right. I'm going to jump into the chatbot. This is a feature that the board may decide to do or may not to. Keep in mind that this is something that you're able to add on at any point in time. The only reason why I feel that this may be something of interest now, and Mark had kind of in our conversations, and same with Sam, was this one provides an immediate impact to the current website. The chatbot is something that we can implement within about a week. And what it does is we'll put it up on your actual website. So it'll be here, and it'll start learning what folks are finding or what they're looking for by the different questions and topics that they'll search for. What this then will do is provide analytics. So when we're getting ready to bring that website to life and we're developing the navigation for the new website, we'll be able to take a look and see, hey, these different topics have been searched for the most. Maybe we should bring those to the forefront of the website so it's easier for folks that are visiting the website to be able to find it. Some of those capabilities are really nice. So the city of Miramar, Florida has a big Spanish population. I'll show you real quick as a native Spanish speaker, if I come in and type in a question. So, ¿cuánto tiempo dura obtener un permiso? I'm asking it how long does it take to obtain a permit? When I enter that question, what's currently going on is the system is recognizing that a question has been asked in Spanish. It's translating said question to English, finding the answer on the website, translating the answer to Spanish, and providing it back to me in a matter of seconds. Now it's letting me know that for a residential project, it might be 3 to 5 days. If it's a commercial project, it might be about 15 days. And then it gives me the source of where that answer was found, so I could go through and maybe dive in deeper if I need to. Now, the languages that it supports are not just Spanish. That's the only language outside of English that I'm a native speaker of. But the same way that the website itself has the ability to change the language to any of these here at the bottom, the chatbot can recognize and answer in those languages as well. An additional feature that the chatbot has, is I'll use the city of Portland, Maine as an example, is the ability to change the welcome message and recognize the department that it's on. So here on the home page, Portland, Maine has been utilizing our chatbot for a long time. And so it has brought up all these different categories that have been searched for the most on their website. Among those is vehicle registration. So before going into it, you'll notice that the welcome message is, hello, can I help you find the answer to your question? I come in, I could type a question out, or if one of these categories is what I'm looking for, I can go ahead and click it. And so it's letting me know that currently I do need an appointment to register my vehicle in Portland, and it takes me to the auto registration page. Now here's where I can find that information, but if this might be a little overbearing or I have a very specific question, in the bottom right, now that welcome message has changed and it says need help with your automobile registration. And here are a few different points that have been searched for that the chatbot has also come to learn and has just very quickly implemented it on there. I'll pause again. Are there any questions with chatbot or anything else that I've covered up until now?
If I remember right, chatbot is about $4,000 a year.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Of course. All in all, that really is the majority of what I wanted to cover. I wanted to at least give the board and Natalie, Mayor, the ability to be able to go through and see this, although you might remember some of it from when we last talked. We're excited to be able to be the vendor that the city of Marshfield has selected. It is a very hands-on process that we're going to do. We'll provide full training to all staff that'll be editing content. We'll make sure that they're up to date on things such as ADA accessibility and how when they edit and create content, they can make sure to keep that in mind as well. Well, if there's no other questions, Mark, Sam, I'll turn it back over to you and be able to answer any if they do come in.
Go ahead and go over. Here it says the chatbot's 30,000. Yeah. So I'll Mark's kind of taking the lead on this. So I'll kind of go through this real quick, but this is on the agenda tonight for your guys' approval. I will tell you that the amount that for the proposals in your packet, it was budgeted. One important thing that I do want to point out is that there is an annual renewal fee for it as well. So it's not just the 1 year. It is something that we'll figure into the budget each and every year. But the website design and everything, it is within what we had budgeted, and staff is recommending approval. If you have any questions, Mark, I'll turn that over to Mark. But
Sam, remind me how much that dollar amount was.
that we had budgeted.
Yes.
We had $40,000 budgeted, and then we had another additional 20 as a growth area from the Parks Department. But there's a timeline in here that we're probably looking at probably October-ish, probably before we go live with it. And so the still not sure if we're going to be looking at doing that add-on, because this is going to be so much more user-friendly than what we have now. And so I've challenged Mark to just kind of hold off on that and really use it the way that it is. And we can always add that on later and see what he likes, what he doesn't like, what are you able to do, what are you not able to do. And so right now, we're just looking for doing just the regular website and not doing the additional portion for the Parks and Rec.
What about the chat bot? I mean, is it recommended? Is that, or would you recommend getting, or?
It's kind of a coin flip. The thing with the major website changes that we're going to do here, this is going to be so much different for the user experience than what they have now. It would, I know there's benefits to the chat bot. The biggest one probably being that they can implement it right now on our current website and start, seeing what people are looking for and things like that. But people aren't used to interacting with our website like that. So I worry that might get lost a little bit in that, and that it might not be as advantageous as it could be. It is an expensive feature. It is something that we can add at any time. Now, we'll lose the ability for the analytics, in the building process. But again, I'm not sure that with the cost associated that we will get, all the advantages of that we could, just because our people don't interact with our website very much right now. I think if you're asking me what my suggestion would be, it would probably be to go with the website without the chat bot. And then if we see that that's a feature that we need, we can add that or any number of other features that they have at any given time in a consecutive year. I think that's what, after considering that and thinking about it, my personal suggestion, and that I think that would be it, to forego that at this time and see how see how things are if we.
Agree. For the main drop-off points for the university, we have started adding chatbots, but we do generally point to a different demographic at this time that would utilize that. There is some accessibility that's gained through the use of a chatbot, but I'm in Mark's camp. I can't tell you that there is sufficient gain to justify the reoccurring cost. Honestly, I somewhat feel that even if we deployed it right now, what it's going to capture is me logging onto the website, looking for stuff, and city staff. We utilize that website as much or more as our general public does. So most of what I think the traffic it's going to pick up, if we were to deploy it on our current website, it's going to be us trying to access the documents we already know exist. There's going to be a few that might actually hit the chat and try to pull something up. But as a general rule, my experience has been that the general public has issues with our website and they've just kind of gone, no, and they'd rather call. So that's been my experience. When I first took office and things were tumultuous with COVID, it was a big issue that people couldn't figure out how to navigate our website. And that's part of what's led us here now.
We're gonna have to market this. We're gonna have to market things like this and draw people to it and let them know that they can interact with it differently. In this website, one of the things that Civic Plus prides themselves on is a 2-click answer or a 2-click destination. So you get to the home page, you should be able to get where you're going, or at least a familiar place where you can get where you're going in 2 clicks or less. So it'll be a lot different user experience for people just with the package, this package, even without the chatbot. There's so many features in it.
Any other questions from the board on the website? So our staff recommendation is to approve quote Q 22044-1, which totals a year one $33,535, and a year 2 plus of 7754.25. Do I have a motion to accept that quote?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will read the resolution to enter contract. Resolution 2022-03, a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement between the city of Marshfield and Civic Plus for website design and development.
Second.
Roll call. Or no, this one's all in favor.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much, Hector. We look forward to working with you to get our new website off the ground.
Absolutely. Thank you all for the time, and Mark and Sam specifically, as well as you, Natalie, for your time as well. Thank you to the board. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks, Hector.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is a report from Planning and Zoning regarding the Case Lakeview subdivision. Steve, would you like to present on this one?
Sure. What you have in front of you is a copy of that final plat. You had seen the preliminary plat previously, and this is the same as what we had shown you before. And what they're doing is they're taking that one large piece of property, they're breaking off 3 lots that are along Pine to have direct access from Pine, and for them to start construction there once they put in a sewer line, which they know they need to. It also allows us a 10-foot additional right-of-way along Hubble, which is important because we never had that before. So we've gained that, so that will take that up to a larger roadway. Other than that, it's exactly what you've seen before, and the staff recommends approval of the final plat.
Any questions or comments on this final plat? Okay, hearing none, I will read the bill. Bill number 2022-03, an ordinance approving a final plat of the Case Lakeview, oh boy, Part 1 Southwest Quarter to Southeast Quarter of Section 34 T31N R18W North Pine Street, a subdivision in Marshfield, Webster County, Missouri.
Make a motion to approve.
Roll call.
East Ward Alderman John Quinn.
Aye.
East Ward Alderman J.C. Cunningham.
Aye.
West Ward Alderman Robert Boggs.
Aye.
West Ward Alderman Stacy Lee.
Aye.
Second reading. Bill number 2022-03, an ordinance approving a final plat of Case Lakeview, Part Southwest Quarter, Southeast Quarter of Section 34 T31N R18W North Pine Street, a subdivision in Marshfield, Webster County, Missouri.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
East Ward Alderman John Quinn.
Aye.
East Ward Alderman J.C. Cunningham.
Aye.
West Ward Alderman Robert Boggs.
Aye.
West Ward Alderman Stacy Lee.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Third reading, right?
No. We're
And you know exactly what that means, right?
So Steve's been trying to teach me, but the answer is no. I'll get there.
To me, it's just over there.
Yeah.
I'm just not there yet.
We may provide you a cheat sheet next time.
Thank you. Because otherwise I'm just gonna read what's there. Okay. State of the city address. So it is that time of year where we have finalized our budget book and all the work that we put in through December of last year to finalize our budget. We will start with the mayor's letter, which I will read. From there, I'll turn it over to Monica and Sam for presentation of the budget book and the financial statements as well. So for the state of the city address, it is my great honor to serve this community as mayor and to serve alongside the exceptional individuals employed and elected by our city. The year 2021 had many changes, challenges, and curveballs, but it also had many accomplishments. Together, we have improved workflows, constructed and improved infrastructure, and developed new strengths which will help us serve our citizens better in the future. During 2020, the prior Board of Aldermen and I set 3 major goals for the 2021 budget year, including 1, to add to the current workforce in the most critical areas and ensure the retention of current employees. 2, to complete the Elm Street Extension project. And 3, to move forward the City Hall relocation project. I feel we have accomplished or made significant progress towards each one of those goals. In May 2021, the current Board of Aldermen and myself promoted Sam Rose to the position of City Administrator and eliminated the position of Deputy City Administrator. Later, the position of Planning and Project Manager was added and filled by Steve Decker. This particular hire has allowed us to redirect several projects to be designed, planned, and construction to be managed in-house instead of paying various contractors and architects for these services. In addition, it has freed up our contracted planning engineer to focus on specific needs addressed in the growth plan. We also hired a new police officer, administrative assistant, utility clerk, and a parks program coordinator. All of these positions help more effectively distribute the workload among existing employees and improve our efficiency. But this area of work is far from complete and will require additional action during 2022. In October 2021, the city's contractor completed construction of the Elm Street Extension, which connects the new Highway CC corridor to Hubble Drive. This new roadway already serves many of our citizens and patrons looking to more quickly connect to and from Interstate 44 and the northeast side of our city, and has helped to reduce some peak hour traffic from our spur drive. During 2022, we will begin traffic studies aimed at gauging the impact of these new traffic patterns to ensure the safety of our citizens at major intersections along Hubble Drive. Also in 2022, the same contractor will return to complete the multi-purpose trail, which runs parallel to this extension. Lastly, in July 2021, designers with Buxton Cubic Dodd presented an updated space needs analysis, which further emphasized the immediate and emerging need for additional space for City Hall operations. As the Board of Aldermen and I worked through this issue, an opportunity to sell the downtown building purchased by the formal board was realized. The board voted to obtain an independent appraisal of the building's value, and after receiving the report, began negotiations with prospective buyer. In December 2021, the city sold the building and voted to commit the proceeds of the sale to the future expansion of the current City Hall. For the 2022 budget year, the current Board of Aldermen and I again set goals for city improvement. I again set a goal addressing workforce development, attraction, and retention. And the board set a goal to improve city assets such as buildings and equipment and infrastructure such as roadways and utilities. To address the workforce development, attraction, and retention, we reviewed salary comparison information available for fourth-class cities with a population between 5,000 and 10,000 citizens. Using this information, we discontinued the step system previously used for compensation increases and developed pay ranges for each position. We then compared this information to current pay and determined the city needed to make considerable improvement in wages. Therefore, it was determined in the 2022 budget would include a 2.5 cost of living adjustment for all full-time employees. The board also budgeted funds for mid-year merit increases based upon performance reviews, which are required to be completed in the early months of 2022. While these budget increases are not sufficient to pull salaries into a comparative range, the board and I have committed to assuring employee development, attraction, and retention are at the forefront of our decisions as we continue to make progress in this area. To achieve improvement of city assets and infrastructure, we have budgeted projects and asset purchases as growth areas and increased operating budgets where able to improve the maintenance and repair efforts. While all of these are needed, many of them are not expected to be feasible during the 2022 budget year. Improvements to the city's utility infrastructure were determined to be of most critical need. Many issues with sewer capacity, flow, and discharge were studied during 2021. All the options for improvement require significant investment, and without these improvements, any future development is unlikely. In addition, an operations deficit, meaning operating expenses exceeded operating revenues, was realized in both the utility funds during the budget process. This is largely due to the fact that rates have remained the same since 2017, while operations have experienced major wage and material price increases. In addition, no repair and replacement funds were established for the sewer and the fund established for the water is not sufficient to meet our needs. Sufficient cash exists to fund the deficit realized in 2022, but it cannot fund for the foreseeable future, and additional action is required. In conclusion, the 2020 year budget looks to be an exciting year for both challenge and growth, but I have no doubt in our ability to continue moving Marshfield forward together. Signed, Natalie McFinish. Sam?
Natalie was able to get hers onto the 2 pages, and so mine's 3 pages, so I'm gonna spare you me having to read mine. So it does do a pretty, it's just a little bit more of a recap and breaks it down by fund. And so past that, you've got the recommendation from the Finance Advisory Committee for the adoption of the budget. And then Monica has done a very good job over the years of really crafting some really good information and tables and breaking information down for you all, but for anybody that wants to come in and show, we can show anybody our transparency for where our revenue, what our revenue is and where our expenditures go. I'll turn this over to Monica here in just a second, but I just want to, you'll see Monica and I at most meetings, we have this with us. There's always one in this room that stays in this room as well. This thing is I mean, this is our go-to. Their bars are worn and tattered by the end of the year. They've got notes and marks all over them. And so, I mean, this is our go-to. Our department heads all get one as well. And this is what they said they needed. This is what you all approved. And so we use it. So I encourage you, anytime you have any questions or want to recap or to refresh on anything in there, that you just reach out and ask. We are going to talk about a budget amendment in a little bit. And so you will get a separate, we won't update this book. That budget amendment will be a separate sheet that you can put with this book, but it won't necessarily modify this book, but it will be documented as a budget amendment that you can put with it. Well, with that, I mean, I'll turn it over.
Well, just so everybody knows, there is a copy of this on our website. Anybody can go out there and pull that off. What has been updated in here are your actuals for 2021. There are a few items that may change a little bit when we go through the audit. That's just part of the process of going through the audit. We'll be booking some receivables and so, but other than that, this is our actuals for 2021. And do you have any questions on the budget?
Keep in mind, when we were putting the budget together, we gave you, the projected actuals and the estimated actuals for everything. This is after everything's all closed out. Monica's went in and she's made all those adjustments. And so you'll be able to go through each department and see what we budgeted and where we actually ended up for each line item. We'll talk about this again in the budget amendment, but just keep in mind, we do run off of a fund level. And so if you see one line that's over and you see other lines that are under, it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to do a budget amendment for that. We do it for a fund level. So it is the total here and the total here that has to be equal or under. And then you will also notice that there are tabs in here for each fund, but then Monica did put the ARPA funds in there as well. And so you guys will be able to see where we are at with those. And if you guys choose to spend any of those, we'll track those through the year, but we've shown where we have busted it out and we'll keep track of it separate.
Are there any questions from the board on the budget document itself? Thank you very much for your hard work on getting this put together. It's a great document, a great resource for us as we continue through 2022. Monica, if you would please present the financial statement.
Yes. By state statute, we must publish 6-month financial statements twice a year. And the first set that you should have is actually January through December. So in order to calculate July through December, I have to calculate the full year. But what I'm asking for your approval to publish are the 6-month financial statements, which would be the second set. And that would be from July through December. And it is on a cash basis. So when we go through the audit, again, some of these things will change. We'll capitalize the capital out, the major projects for the water and sewer department. So some of this, that's why I have on there cash basis and unaudited, because some of these entries will change through that process. But as of right now, this is what's on our books.
Fantastic. Any questions on the financial statements? If not, I am looking for a motion and a second for approval to publish the 6-month financial statement. All in favor? Thank you. And that leads us to water and sewer rates. Mel, I do want to preface this conversation with just a quick, just setting the stage more or less. While many of us have discussed various approaches during work sessions, this is the first board meeting that this information will appear at. So for a public transparency, there is a lot of information that you may have already seen that we are going to go back through today. Okay, Mel?
All right, thank you for letting me come and speak to you guys about the utility rate study that we've all been working on for quite some time. You've got a presentation.
The email that you sent me.
Yeah, or I have a flash drive if that's easier.
That'd be great.
While he's pulling it up, I'll just kind of go through the agenda for the presentation as one. We'll first go over the scope of the study that you guys hired us to do. Then we'll talk about some general water and sewer rate considerations. We'll compare your existing rates for water and sewer to some other communities around the area. We'll look at the history of your rate increases going back to 2013 to current. Then we'll present the rate increases that we've been working on together and what we're proposing that you consider. We'll discuss public education a little bit. We'll go over changes to your rate ordinance that would have to be made to implement these suggestions. And then we'll have time to have comments and questions and discuss it. So let's go to that third slide if we could.
Better yet. Do you want this?
Sure.
Thanks. I think you'll be able to change it once I put this in there.
There you go. Okay, that was the agenda that I just went through with you guys. All right, scope of the study. So there was 4 major tasks within our agreement. First is financial data collection, is work with the city to determine revenues and expenses for water and sewer utilities. And so first off, your staff was amazing. We spent a lot of time working with just about certainly about everybody in this room, and we spent a lot of meetings working through this. I would say that I don't know what percentage, but a large percentage of the work was actually done sitting right here in this room on this. So it was a collaborative effort, but we did that. We worked with your city and went through all of your revenues and expenses, looking at historical, prior to 22, what you're projecting for 22, and then what we're projecting for future years, because we actually looked at a 5-year planning period. Operation and maintenance data collection. We worked with your staff to determine your existing O&M costs. And then we estimated future repair and replacement costs. As the mayor mentioned, you have a repair and replacement account set up for your water system. We reviewed that and suggested some increases to that so that you could better long-term operate and maintain your infrastructure. For your wastewater, you didn't have it. I think you might have a fund, but you weren't funding it. So we worked with your staff to come up with a proposed repair and replacement fund. And we incorporated that into our proposed rates. And then the actual rate computations, evaluate your rates. Are they adequate? If not, what do we suggest? And then how do we get there essentially? And then lastly is just the management of our study and our meetings and our invoices. Just talk about some general rate considerations. One, if we're going to do this, it affects a lot of people. So there needs to be a public outreach plan. And we need to communicate the necessity of these rate increases to your constituents and to your businesses. And so that needs to be a part of any kind of rate study and increases. And that proper rates help the water and sewer systems to operate at a balanced budget without transferring funds from other departments or reserves. And as we'll discuss later, and as the mayor just mentioned, the sewer has a pretty big deficit right now, and the water has a small one, and that's without even increasing the repair and replacement funds that you guys need to have. And the last thing on the sheet is consider increasing rates every year. It's generally difficult if you wait 5 or 10 years to do a rate increase, because then it's such a big rate increase and you're so far behind that it causes more problems. And so even if your rates are adequate right now, or if you get them to where they need to be right now, consider putting some type of system in place where you're at least keeping up with inflation. And the next thing is, these are more general rate topics, is fixed versus variable expenses. So you can break down, and we did your expenses. Some of your expenses and your revenues are fixed, for example, salaries and insurance. And then some are variable, more like chemicals, electricity. So if a pump station runs more, it costs more to operate than if it operates less. And then your revenues are the same way. If you set a base rate, you're going to get that every month, regardless of how much water or sewer that is used or generated, whereas a volumetric rate is variable. And then a little discussion on depreciation and an R&R versus an R&R annuity. So a lot of times when we're working on a rate study, people will get these two confused, or they'll ask if we're including depreciation in our rate calculations. And while depreciation is an important component of your accounting system, it's it helps to identify the actual value of something as its value reduces over time for your books and your balance sheet. It doesn't really help us on a rate study, because we need to know more what it costs to operate and maintain it. So what we look at is a repair and replacement annuity, kind of like a retirement system for your infrastructure, so that as needs come available or come about over time, you have a fund that's there that can pay for those expenses. And then some other things that we've talked as we went through this study is there's different ways that you can set up your rate structure. So for example, you could have the same rate structure for all customers, and that so whether you're residential, whether you're a commercial, whether you're industrial, whether you're in the city, out in the city, everybody pays the same. That's one option. Another option is you could charge certain customers more. Like, for example, you could charge a commercial or an industrial customer more than, say, a residential user. Another thing is if you have to increase rates, you could do that on a straight percentage, or you could weigh that more towards one type of customer versus another. And then, like we just talked a minute ago, fixed versus volumetric rate components. You could try to put more of your fixed rate expenses into, say, base rates, and more of your variable expenses into volumetric rates. And then we talked about, so in some cases, we'd use a flat rate for a water or sewer rate. It's generally, you see that in a sewer rate where there's not a water system to read water meters. And so they'll have to do some type of average over all the people. The bad thing about a flat rate is there's no incentive to preserve water. And so it's just harder on your infrastructure. And then the last thing on this is that you can have BOD and suspended solid surcharges. And that is just something that you need in your rate ordinance, so that you don't get somebody coming in and putting a big load on your system and not paying their share for that. So we're going to see a lot of rates as we go through these slides. And so what we've done is we've used an example residential user for comparison. So to compare different rates now versus future, you versus your neighbors, that type of thing. And then for the presentation tonight, we're using 4,000 gallons per month for water and sewer for this. In previous work sessions and discussions, we started off using 5,000 gallons. But once we got into your data in your particular city, what we found is that your average user is just a little bit less than 4,000. And so to make it more applicable to your city and for our data that we would end up showing to your constituents, we wanted something that was more representative of your city. So all of the charts and numbers that you'll see tonight, in some cases you've seen these before during our work sessions, they've all been recalculated using 4,000 gallons per day for our example user so that it's consistent. And so just to get a feel for that, that's 133 gallons per day on average for that user that we're going to discuss. Okay, so here is a current rate comparison table of Marshfield versus some of the neighboring or local communities. And it's got, in this table, it's got population, so you can kind of see how many people are in each community. And then it has the water rate, the sewer rate, and the total of those added together for that 4,000 gallon per month example user that we just discussed. And so you guys are at the top. And so that's 26, your population is just under 7,500 there. And your water would be 2,683 a month. Your sewer would be $21 a month for a total of 4,783. And just to note, all these tables we're going to say, this is just what it takes to operate and maintain your water and sewer system. It does not include your CIP or any state or local fees. So, but anyway, so if you'll look at that, you'll see that it's kind of hard to see where you stand relative to everybody else. But one thing we can see on the right is the average water for other communities is $29.50 and yours is $26.83. So yours is just a little bit less than the average. The average sewer for the other communities would be $34.95 and yours is $21. So you're well below the average for the other communities. And then if you take the average total for the other communities, it's $64.45, whereas yours is $47.83, so quite a bit less. And it just because every community is different. And so just because somebody is higher or lower than you, it's really hard to compare because they have different infrastructure and it takes different costs. Some of these people have studied and they have rates in place that do a good job of maintaining it and building their repair and replacement. Some haven't. So it's kind of hard to look at it, but it does give you a feel where you're at compared to your neighbors. But one note when you look at this is that a larger population does not mean lower rates. You know, you might think, well, hey, a bigger community's got economy of scale, but that's not what we see. There's little to no correlation between rates and community size. So to try to make that data just a little bit more understandable where you're at, we've put some tables in here or some charts in here. And so that is the same as that data that we just saw in the previous table, but it's presented from least to most expensive for water rates, again, for that 4,000 gallon a month user. And then you can see that for the water, you're somewhere in the middle of what those are. It's got that your Marshfield is highlighted in yellow at the bottom. And then for sewer, same thing. You can see you're way over almost the lowest. So your sewer is quite a bit lower than everybody else. And then if you add those together, you can see you're in probably the bottom third or so compared to other communities. So let's talk for a few minutes about the history of your rates. So from 2014 to 2017, you had a rate ordinance set up so that every year it increased. So it increased 10 cents per thousand and 20%, 20 cents per 100 gallons for each year. And then in 2017, you did another rate increase, but since then it hasn't changed. And then also in 2019, you guys modified your CIP, and we'll see details on that here in a few minutes. So since that time, I mentioned that you haven't increased your rates since 2017. So we went and said, hey, what are some other utilities? Not necessarily other cities. We looked at, for example, Webster Electric and that type of thing. And so we just called a whole bunch of them and said, hey, have you raised your utility rates since 2017? And these are the ones we called, and every single one had. So we didn't call a single other utility who hadn't increased their rates since 2017. So that being said, I think that when we're letting your constituents know that there's a rate increase, I think we should let them know. It's been a long time since you had one. It just makes sense that you'd need one. And so this is that a way to look at that data on your rate history. So what we've done is we've taken that same 4,000 gallon per month residential user and plotted out what their water rate would have been from 2013 to 2022. So you can see from 2013 through 2016, there's a steady increase, and that was programmed into your rate ordinance. Then it jumped in 2017 when it was increased, and then it's been the same. So a 4,000 gallon per month residential user is paying the same today as they have been since 2017. And then the black lines are if you had an escalation factor for inflation built in. So you can see that user would be paying about $31 a month right now if that had been in your rate ordinance. And this is exact same thing for sewer. And you can see it again from 2013 to 2016, there was a steady increase built into your rate ordinance, and it's flat since 2017. And then the black lines would be if we had increased it for inflation. And then just a few notes about your capital improvement fee, your CIP. That was first put in place in 2012 to fund improvements to your city's water and sewer infrastructure. And then it's $5 per month per user from 2013 to 2019. And in 2020, that was changed to $5.50 per month. And then for sewer, it started out at $9 per month. And then in 2020, it was changed to $8.50. So the total amount wasn't changed. It was just redistributed slightly between your water and your sewer fund. The 2022 estimated revenue is $490,000, and then it's got a breakdown: $297,500 for sewer and $192,500 for water. And so you think that's a lot of money. We could use that to operate and maintain a system, but that's really not what this is for. That currently funds debt service, and a portion of it goes to grow Marshfield. And so in 2022, there is a surplus estimate of $96,250 total. And then I've got some CIP balances just for discussion. We haven't updated them for a while, so I could get some new ones from Monica, but the last time that we got these numbers was November 15th. And at that time, the water was $458,821, and the sewer was $988,113. So let's talk about the sewer rates. And so we looked at a lot of different scenarios, and I didn't present them all here because one, they're not apples to apples. Some sewer rates were different than others in our approach, but this working with you guys, we've come up with what we've proposed. And so I'll go over what you have existing, and then what we're proposing for the next 5 years. So first off, if you did nothing in 2022, we would project that you would bring in about $820,000 with your rates. And they're listed there, a residential base fee of $5 and a commercial base fee of $5 and a flowage fee of 40 cents per hundred. And in that example of that 4,000 gallon residential user we've discussed, it would be a $21 a month bill. That would leave you with a shortfall of 103,000 and change. So essentially, if you do nothing, you will have to supplement your fund by 100,000+. And then on top of that, the sewer fund doesn't have a repair and replacement account. So what we did is we worked with your staff, as I mentioned earlier, and developed a proposed repair and replacement annuity. And we ran the rates on that, and it was going to be so much that we broke it into a 5-year implementation plan, so that would be a little bit easier on your constituents. And so what we're doing is proposing in 2022, you increase your rates so that we're funding that repair and replacement annuity at half of what we ultimately want to get it to. And then by 2026, you're up to where you should be good moving forward. And then we broke it up. So in 2022, it's 50% of the annuity. In 2023, it's 63%. 2024, it's 75%. 25, it's 88%. And like I said, in 2026, you'd be up to 100%. Another thing that we did in this rate analysis is that we made a distinction between residential and this says commercial. It's actually non-residential rates. We'll get into that later on in the definitions in the rate ordinance. And so if you're a residential user, which we'll define later in our rate ordinance, then your base, we're recommending a base fee of $10 a month. And then a flow fee of 58 cents per 100 gallons. And that would yield for that average user that we've been talking about, residential user, a bill of $33.32. Then the commercial user would basically be $2.50 more. If you had the same exact 4,000 gallons in your commercial user, it'd be $2.50 more because the base rate is $2.50 higher. And then that would yield the money for a flex account, which is something that you guys wanted to have, and 50% of the annuity that we want for repair and replacement. And then, like I say, you can follow that over on the table and then see that we've calculated the rate increases to get us to the 100% of it annuity by 2026. And in these rates for 23 through 26, we've also just went ahead and included a 2% inflation index in them to kind of keep track of that as we go forward. And so with that, you'd be at a balanced budget and get you to where you need on that. Are there any questions on the proposed sewer rates? So with that, with the new 22 rates, we took that same data that we looked at earlier, and before you were over to the left, just near Camdenton, this puts you close to the middle there compared to the people in this that we studied. Now, the same exact discussion on water. Water, you were in a lot better shape going into the study than you were with sewer. You were only projecting a shortfall of $3,200, and you had a pretty decent repair and replacement annuity set up. We just went through that in detail and recommended that it needed to be a little healthier. And so rather than doing a 5-year implementation on water of the rates, we're recommending, and we've discussed during work sessions, possibly just doing that in 1 year, and that's what we're presenting. So on water, that 4,000 gallon residential user, for the example, it would currently be $26.83, and then with our proposed increase, it would jump to 32.11, and the details of that are there. And so with that rate increase that we're proposing, you would cover your deficit, you would increase your R&R annuity to where it needs to be long-term, and you'd have the flex account that you guys have requested. Are there any questions on that? Okay, and then next is the same chart we've been looking at for water. You compared to your neighbors, and you can see that, you know, you're still well within norms. Then if you put those together, this is, so you're about in the middle there. The most important thing is you're where you need to be, regardless of what your neighbors are doing. We've worked together, and I believe we've put together a proposal that will take care of your short and long-term needs. One thing to remember, that the rates don't include everything under the sun. For example, they don't include money for construction of infrastructure for like the growth areas or other expansions. That's got to, if we do that, that's got to come from some other funding. They don't include an expansion of your wastewater treatment plant. They will take care of it and keep it going, but that doesn't expand it. There's some bypass elimination stuff that we're working on. It's not going to do capital improvements for that. It's not going to do a widespread I&I reduction program for your city, but there is money in there to attack that beast one bite at a time over the years. It doesn't, these rates don't include the CIP like I've discussed before, and they don't include state and local fees. So moving forward, what are the next steps? Is one, we need to, if you choose to do this, we'd need to update your water and sewer rate ordinance, and I've got a draft of that for discussion today. And then you need to work on public education and outreach, and we've discussed handouts or mailers, social media, and some website. And so that being said, we've been working on the first thing to roll this out. We've been working on some public education information. And I believe most of you have had a chance to review this, so I won't go through the entire thing, although I'm willing to. I'm here as long as you need me. But this first thing is a fact sheet and an educational component. It's double-sided, and it starts off with some rationale of why we would need to update and increase water and sewer rates. And then it gives ideas to what individuals can do to reduce their water and sewer bills so that they have some ownership and some control over it. And so it gives them some concepts. The next thing it has is the proposed 2022 rates and we use that residential example there as well. And then it's got some information about your water system and your sewer system so that people can better understand that, hey, this is a big system that it takes money to operate it. You know, for example, it's you pump over 1 million gallons of water, and you have over 3,000 customers. You got 4 water towers, 3 wells, lots of fire hydrants, and over 63 miles of water main. It takes money to keep that up and going. And then it has similar facts for the sewer. And if you flip that over, it's got the proposed 5-year plan for water and sewer rates for in a tabular form. And then it's got a timeline for implementation of that. And so what we're suggesting is that you'll vote at some point. It says February 24th, but that's up to you whenever you would vote to do this. And then we're recommending maybe on April 1st, start the new 2022 rates. And then in January 1st of each year for the next 4 years, implement the rates that we've discussed. And then there's more just education components on it. You know, when you mail your bills, when they're due, what the penalties are if you're late, and when those go into effect. And then there's a definition for residential versus non-residential. It's never been an issue before because there was no distinction, but now there is a distinction on the bill, so we help define what those are. And then lastly, there is an app that you guys have got implemented called My Water Advisor 2.0. So it gives them information on how they can use that to help monitor their water usage, and hopefully that will help as well. It's also, I say lastly, because there's a couple more important things on here. One is an encouragement to sign up for ACH auto bill, and the benefit that will help them avoid late penalties. And then there's a link to your website. And this could all be put on your website. We also, I didn't bring it today, but we've also drafted an executive summary of our study. That if you wanted to, you could post that on the website as well. Any comments or questions on this?
I challenge staff to just pick this thing apart, and I would challenge you guys to do the same thing. I mean, we can change it. We can do whatever you guys want to do. But where do you draw the line of how much information you can put on there to, and we've changed graphics, we've changed pictures, we've changed what we thought would look the best. And so this is what the staff has come up with along with Great River. And so we would be more than happy to implement anything or make any changes that you guys want to. But right now, with no further input from you all, this is what would go out.
I've already had a stab at this, so board members, is there anything on this particular item that you think we need to address differently or that does not present well?
And I know you guys are seeing it for the first time tonight, so it's basically you guys set the timeline for this, right? I mean, you guys, I totally understand. You want to take it, digest it, kick it around, kick us back comments, whatever you want to do, bring it to the next meeting. I don't care. We're going to be looking, it's not on the agenda for action tonight, but what we are going to be looking for is, when do you guys want to implement? What do you guys want to put out? When do you want to put it out? How much notice you want to give? And then when do you want to see this stuff back?
The things I like is at least to let you know that there's gonna be yearly increases, which will probably save some headache, I mean, for Julie in the future. Right, just to, and I think people are getting more accustomed to the fact that they just cost, I mean.
And Mel said it very well. It's easy to compare to what Ozark and Nixon, Rogersville and Republic, what they're doing, but we're not them. We go through a very stringent budget process, and we lay out for you all and for many others exactly where we spend our money. And it takes that much money to operate. And we have gone without it. And so now we're going backwards. And so something has to be done. Doesn't matter that that's what they pay. We have to have the amount of money that we have to pay to keep everything going. So
Your expectation, if you remember right, on this replacement and repair, it is once every 200 years.
Yeah.
So in all reality, it's probably not even realistic. It's just that many pipes in the ground.
And then we've also developed for your consideration and discussion, a postcard that can be sent out. And it's got some of the same information on it.
And Julie, what did we say? I'm sorry. What did we say the mailings would cost on these postcards?
I think you wrote it, what, up to 1,000? It was 890, 900, you might
Yeah,
say,
so-
give or take.
Because I haven't gotten
So if we wanted to do these postcards, right, that's something else that you guys needed to think about and decide. But if you want to do these, some people are going to get them and throw them away. Some people are actually going to go, hey, but every time we mail them will be about $1,000. So.
And like the color, I think will catch people's eyes, how bright they are. So maybe more people will pay attention to
And that's
it.
talking round numbers, $850 to $950, but about every time you do a mailing like that, it'd be about $1,000.
And on the address side, it's got why are my rates increasing, and it's got the same logic as the other flyer. And then on the back side, it's got rates and facts about your system. That's just a condensed version of what's on the other sheets.
Julie, Stacy had asked, is the information on My Water Advisor 2.0 already on our website?
No,
No.
not yet. We're trying to get as many meters changed out
Switched
to the
over
new
first.
ones as we can, because there
So
may
we
still be the
can-
few people who won't have the new meter, and they're gonna be like, why can't I use it? So the guys are working really hard to,
So it's not up and going yet.
So it's up and going, they could get on it.
we've told
anytime.
some people about it,
Right.
just to try it out, but
Right? But
If you have a
I
new
can't get
meter.
account, my account to work.
Well, so.
Okay,
so
you
let's
have
talk
to
about-
add
And those are
two.
the kinks we need. to
Yeah,
work
that's why
out
we
too
put
before
on
we go.
here, visit the city's website for account creation information. We're gonna have some instructions that we'll put on there, because the way master meter is set up, it adds 2 zeros before your account number and 1 zero after for some reason. So you have to put the 2 before the account number and then the 1 after. So,
It's a little
It's a
quirky
little
thing that we
confusing,
can't really put on here,
Right.
but we'll have directions to just how to do it.
yeah,
But we are very close on those residential meters, and they really all need to be in if at all possible.
before we do this, just because there'll be some,
It'll save a few calls, because somebody
'Cause
try
people-
to get on it and like.
and they, yeah, why don't I have a new meter then? It's like, well, we're working,
One of the things I like about that app is the forecast of what you're gonna end up looking at your current.
Right. And on those apps, I mean, just so you guys know, there are more possibilities with stuff like that, not with that app, but we had looked at it before, and it's great. It would be super great, but if nobody uses it, it's not worth the money.
There's a customer portal that goes with the software that we have with Master Meter, but it comes with a cost. And so we'll see how this works out. But if you guys want to provide more information to the citizens and to the users, we can look at that. But I want to say, for whatever reason, that it seems like the magic number is always $10,000, but it's pricey.
It was pricey, but
And it's an annual fee. So I mean, if you have 5% of your users using it, I mean, is it worth it? And so there are, well, just imagine, right? Technology, so the possibilities are endless, just depends on what you want to pay for. We have a very good software now that will do that with this company. So
this is a great start. This app's a great start.
It is.
To see how many's gonna use it and how well it goes over and stuff.
and a lot of people that are going to call in, I mean, if they would take advantage of the auto pay or just look in the budget and look at what the delinquent bills, I mean, we budget for a revenue for that. There's so many people that are just continually late that if they could save themselves a lot of money if they would just pay on time.
I do agree. The color on the postcard increases our chance. I was checking the election calendar because I didn't want our postcards going out with all the primary propaganda that will follow here soon. But it looks like the filing dates on that start February 22nd, but they don't close until March 29th. So by that point, we'll be done educating because our rates will roll out, tentatively, they roll out April 1. And I would imagine most people would not bother to campaign too heavily, especially in print, until closer to the actual primary. So I do think our postcards might have a fighting chance of not all ending up in 513.
And so then there kind of brings up the question, when do you guys, how much education, how far out do you want to put that? When do you want to see this go into effect? When do you want to see the mailers go out? When do you want us to start handing the flyers out? And we're going to do some educational stuff. Steve's volunteered to do some educational stuff in some different places too. So when do you want all of that to roll out?
At this point, it will be February 24th when we are able to take action on the city month. So no education can take place until then. If we go with an April 1 start date, which we had talked about, it's about 6 weeks, right?
I'm thinking the sooner the better.
So even if we did 3 different education strategies every 2 weeks, approximately, I mean, we don't need to send one right before the bill comes out, but nonetheless. And of course, let's see, April 1's flow data will actually be in the May 15th. Right?
Well, for the April, the increase for the bill will be February to March, middle of February, consumption to middle of March for the April, the bill they'll get April 1st.
Right, but if rates don't increase until April, when will they actually see the increase in a bill?
Oh, yeah, it won't be till May.
It won't be
And
till
if
May.
it- if it's-
So technically,
it's,
we've got another 4 weeks in there to educate. Steve's already talked about, reaching out to the senior center and doing some hands-on work. Sam and I have some meetings set up with the chamber to go talk with them, and I think Sam's talking to Rotary. Once these items are settled and we're final, we'll also take it to grow in early March. So trying to get our stakeholders educated as well as to why we've done this and what's going to happen. Because as the talk happens in the community, they can help us. Again, help us educate of the why we're doing this. So does that time frame still seem reasonable? And using both the postcard and the, what did we call this? Fact sheet?
Does that just go in your, like an envelope with your bill or something?
No, so we'll hand those out. We'll take them, we'll post them places. We'll basically try to get the word out through whatever we can hand those out on. It'll be on our website. We'll do some stuff on Facebook with it. And so those are going to be basically handouts. The postcards will be what actually gets mailed out. Yeah, we've done letters and we've done where we've mailed out like that, and it's very expensive by the time you stuff envelopes, and a lot of times people just get it and throw that away. I think that's where the postcard is going to be. You're not going to open it.
I agree.
You're going to pick it up and look at it.
They're just gonna get it and then they'll look at it because they don't have to open it.
So even if we just send it out twice, 3 weeks apart, 4 weeks apart, the same information, maybe the second time it lands, they see something different.
So how many? So that's a good question for in here. So how many times do you want to send? Do you want to send the postcard out twice?
Just twice.
We've got a good window for it as long as we all get the same mailers anyway. If we notice that the primary stuff starts flowing in, we probably just need to take our stuff out. If we haven't hit our second mailing, we might rediscuss that topic. Because once the election material is coming in, our postcards go in the trash. In my opinion.
So what else am I missing on anything on your end as far as?
Yeah, I don't think so.
She'll probably have something in the newspaper too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and so, I mean, that's a lot of the information that we needed, because, I mean, that will affect the ordinance, that'll affect the initiation date, that'll affect when we go live with it. So everything that we'll bring back to you will reflect with the feedback that you gave us tonight for the ordinance and for it.
You might also have somebody in city staff reach out specifically to OCAC and DFS.
Okay.
Just to make sure they're aware and they have these fact sheets.
Okay.
They address a lot of the needs of that lower income population that would be most impacted by this. And then Steve's going to take care of seniors.
Did you already reach out to OCAC on something else?
I reached out to Chris Parker, and that was talking about if they need assistance in paying their bills,
Yeah.
then
Okay.
you could go through OCAC. But Chris said that she's actually the contact person for several different agencies. And so she helps the seniors who need assistance. And so that's another thing we're going to bring up when we start the education for them.
All right, and so obviously we need to get the public educated and know what's coming and know why. Another thing that we have to do is update chapter 700 for your water and sewer service. And so we've proposed changes to that. So this document here is All the new text is in yellow, and then the text that used to be there is in red strikeout. And so I'll go briefly over that, and if you guys want to go in more detail, we can do that. Okay, so this first thing is where it says starting January 1st, 2027. So this is the ability to escalate your rates to keep them from getting behind due to cost increases and inflation. And so what that does is it allows you guys to increase your water and sewer rates based on an annual inflation metric. And there's the details. I can read it if you want, or you can read it there. And then there's a provision that no rate adjustment shall be less than 0% or more than 5% unless approved by this board.
So the purpose in that was this last year's inflation is currently right around 7.4 at this point. I think the board would need to have input before we increase the rates by that extent, right? Otherwise, this allows staff to adjust the rates as needed in the budget process and bring back just the ordinance for approval at the same time as we approve the budget.
And I talked to Paul about this very specific sentence or statement, and said he hadn't seen it done that way, but he looked at it and researched it, and he did not have an issue with it. He's the one that actually said that you would want to put a floor in it of 0 and put a maximum on there to be approved by you all as well. And from the administration side, I wouldn't want to be able to put in more than 5% on there anyway. I would want that to come back to you all anyway. I mean, it's not that staff can approve it regardless. It's just so that in the budgeting process, we know that we have the leeway or the leniency to make those adjustments up to even as an option.
And that's why the July through June period is also used. That's the same period we use to calculate our anticipated sales tax revenue for the next year. So that time period would be readily available for Monica to do those calculations, figure out what increase we may or may not wish to take in those rates in the coming year and work that into that revenue budget document. So it would give the board the ability to have say all through that budget process on what that increase is. It just allows staff to take the first step of it without having to involve the board.
Natalie may have said this already, but the 0 is there for if the CPI is negative, then the rate realistically doesn't mean that our costs go down. So the rate increase may be 0. You guys may even choose to eat into cash, depending on the circumstance, right? If it is in a negative year, but that's why it's 0. That's why it doesn't just follow that CPI, is because if it's in a negative, we're probably not going to follow suit with that with our rates.
All right, and then the next thing is there's a definition section. And so we define what a residential user is and what a non-residential user is. And the reason that we have to do that is we now have 2 different rates. So we need to know, what category a user falls within. And so it's pretty wordy, but essentially a residential is somebody who is a single family private residence dwelling or home. And then there's a provision that a home-based business doesn't prevent a user from being a residential user so long as it is the principal residence of the business owner. And then we define a non-residential user as basically just somebody that doesn't fall in that category. And so again, we can read these if you want out loud, but and then we make a distinction between an in-city limits user and an outside city limit user. And the criteria there is whose address of the user of the public. This wording is pretty tongue twisting, but is whether or not their address is located within the Marshfield city limits. And we know that we've discussed sometimes the house may be outside the city limits and, but the connection's in and that type of thing. So for purposes of this, it's their street address, whether that's inside city limits. You could do it differently. There's a lot of different ways. And then outside is just the opposite of that.
I have a question. Looking at that initial paragraph that we were already talking about, starting January 1st, 2017, it says all rates. I wonder if that should be total rate. Because we have a base rate and we have a flow rate, I wouldn't want the ability to increase both rates by CPI, in essence, doubling the inflation. Does that make sense? We technically have two rates. So the way this reads, you could increase both of them by 5% and get 10% inflation in a 5% inflation year.
So the total rates may be raised up.
Is that more, or should it be specific to the base rate or the flow rate? Currently, it's calculated to increase on the base rate.
I think it's actually both.
It's both.
Just
Okay.
your total revenue would go up the CPI.
By
So,
CPI.
yeah.
So it's a total rate.
Yeah.
We can chew on that more.
I'll circle that. We'll
Okay.
discuss it some more.
Start over with that.
Okay, and then you turn the page, the next page, there's no changes. The third page is where we actually implement the revised rate table for water. And so it introduces a table, and then it has the base rate, residential and non-residential for the 5-year plan that we've implemented, and then the flow fee that correspond to those. If there's any questions on that, we can discuss that. And then you can see in red strikeout what used to be there. And then in a couple of places, we refer to, definitions that are new that didn't exist before. And then the next section is the section for people that are outside city limits. Gives those same rates, or gives the rates that are associated with an outside city limit person for the next 5 years. And then you can see the strikeout of what used to be there. Another thing it says is a new sewer or water user outside city limits must be approved by the Board of Aldermen. And then on the next page, starts introducing the rates for sewer, and that continues on to the next page. And again, it's a 5-year table. Follows suit for what we've already discussed, the rates, and then you can see the old rates in strikeout. And then below that, same thing, except for it's people outside the city limits. And then on the next page, it addresses, remember we talked about if somebody's contributing a lot of BOD or suspended solids to your wastewater more than what would normally occur, it puts a load on your system. You need to have a way of recovering some of those costs and discouraging that. It's got the text for how to deal with that, and that hasn't been dealt with for a long time. So we've dealt with that. So essentially, what it does there is it doubles the flow fee on sewer, and then it has a cost for the above that for the excess BOD or suspended solids, and it gets those rates. That's it.
Any questions or changes needed in this particular ordinance? We would look for a final to come back to us at the next meeting.
It is important for you guys to understand why that caption's in there about being approved by the board for anything outside the city limits. So in the past, that has been used for negotiations to annex into the city, which is something that staff can recommend, and something that you guys can require. Also, in most cases, somebody that's outside the city limits, that line is probably at capacity. And so if we tell them no, well, my neighbor hooked on, well, that was your neighbor, and shame on us for letting you. Sometimes it's just reaffirming what city staff has already said. So it takes the target off of our back to say, well, there's no discretion in that saying, well, you like my neighbor and you don't like me. Well, you put it before the board and we'll lay it out for you the same as we would for them. If it's over capacity, we're going to say, hey, we wouldn't, because I don't think that it will handle it. And we'll have engineering material and water models to back that up. I just want to point that out there. That is why this statement's right.
And that's all I have on that topic, unless you have any more questions or comments.
I don't hear any. If there is something that comes to mind in the next week or so, please reach out directly to Sam. That way we can address this before it comes back on the next agenda for the ordinance.
And again, pick this thing apart. I mean, if you think that it would read better, or if you think that it would be taken better, we don't care. I mean, we were shooting stuff back and forth even today about, hey, please change this, do this. It's a big deal. And so once you guys feel confident and comfortable with it, but.
Yeah,
So
if you made,
Great.
if you make that smaller and make that bigger.
So can we try to, yeah, even if you take the understanding your utility bill, even if we spread that out this way, you may be able to increase the size.
Sure.
And then we can probably do something on the back as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do that.
So maximize the size of the font. That's what I'm hearing. Okay.
We just turn that over and it's not near as.
Well, and so.
And you got really.
And so no fault to Mel or
No.
city staff or anything else, but so we've been playing around on these on the computer, right? And so when you print them out, they look a little bit different. And so we'll play with that.
Yeah.
And we will have prepared, we'll bring you everything that we're going to use in actual size as your next meeting.
Before we continue, do we need a 5-minute recess?
Yes.
Okay. We will return at 8:50-ish.
Oh, yeah. I've been looking for signals. Hey, I did. This is.
We got some good stuff coming up. So we gotta stay with it, okay?
So.
Did you notice we were losing off over there?
Oh, I am.
And it's, it's hard to see. Yeah.
You got more?
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, everybody's gonna get some.
I'm always cold, so I was surprised. I dressed warm, because I normally freeze in here.
Right.
And then I'm-
Yep, okay, yep, no problem. I'm excited though. Yeah, yeah.
You did?
I saw the.
Did I miss that
scene
song?
in the.
Yeah, the Cupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. And he wasn't expecting it because it's not Valentine's Day. And generally, I don't like to repeat my gaps, but I did this 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And it was just such a hoot. He still talks about it. So this year they added confetti cannons. And I was like, oh, I got to have that for the confetti.
Yeah, there was some long.
He enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was.
Huh? Stinks.
Got big weekend plans?
You're gonna be around in June. Where's I know? Where we're gonna go. I scheduled the vacation on the first week of the meeting. And I think I'm gonna be in West Plains. Possibly. So it depends on what the board plans to do that night. Probably can drive back.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know. I wasn't gonna touch it. I was like, it's there. Okay, thank
Want to
you.
allow for all that. And worst comes to worst, I can do it from.
I imagine.
Well, you know, she'll end up with another pony if you do that.
Her grandfather knew what the we won.
See,
She goes to say
I should have brought candy or something.
something. I'm dying for some sweets.
Yeah, something too. Let's go red Karen.
I think she's out. They're looking for candy. I don't think Karen has one. She had 2 little pieces of chocolate. Okay, now she has 1 little piece of chocolate. Who?
That's what being yelled at. Well, she had like.
Let's see what they come back with.
Nobody's calling.
Yeah.
She's like, "Hey, we're done."
I don't see anything.
So, yeah.
Right.
Are you done?
I think so.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Because we're gonna go to.
So you're ready for that now. We're done,
Yeah.
right?
So, good. Yeah.
They always give me a hand because the kids, like,
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
they end up at the bottom.
Yeah, I'll be here. Have a good evening.
Yeah, there was one.
Yada, yada. Oh, I should've-
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really? First time I ever done that. Yeah.
All right, we got Sam back.
You'll figure your name.
Just Miss and Julie will be okay to, she's gone on. Okay, good, good, good. Okay. So we will resume session at 8:52. I can promise you guys, there's really good stuff on the rest of this agenda. We just got to push through it. Okay, so the next 2 items, I am really happy to say are proof of the partnerships that we have created as a city and how those partnerships kind of work for us. The first one, Mel is going to present on the T grant that was awarded for our traffic studies. So,
Yeah.
Mel?
So we applied, I guess in 2021, I don't remember exactly when we did it, for transportation engineering assistance grant. We were awarded that. The total grant award was 12,000. Those TEEPs, the most you can do under this current grant is a $15,000 project, and MoDOT will match 80% of that. So they'll do a $12,000 grant, which would have left the 3,000 for you. And we initially came with a study the scope that would do that, but you guys wanted to add some additional stuff while we're doing it. And so that's why it brings it up to $19,498.67. So of that 19.5 roughly. 12,000 will be paid by MoDOT and just under 7,500 by the city. And so this is an agreement using the format that MoDOT requires us to use for those TEEP grants. And MoDOT has reviewed this and said that they're good with it. If we sign this contract, agree to do this today, this is due by May the 17th of this year. So we have to finish it by then. And then as far as what we're getting for that, it's, find it here again, so I don't miss anything. We're going to do some traffic counts out there. And so we will do morning and evening AM and PM peak hour turning movements at the intersections of Hubble and North Elm, Hubble Drive and North Pine Street, and Hubble Drive and North Marshall. And then we'll do 24-hour traffic volumes on basically the same intersections going each direction. Hubble Drive west of North Marshall, Hubble Drive between North Marshall and North Pine, Hubble Drive between North Pine and North Elm, Hubble Drive east of North Elm, North Pine Street north of Hubble Drive, and North Pine Street south of Hubble Drive. And then we will use all that information to do some further studies. The first thing is to conduct a speed study on the newly constructed North Elm Street. And then we'll use that to recommend the appropriate speed limit. Right now, we've just put one out there based off of what we believe it's going to be, but we're going to confirm that by study. And then we're also going to review accident data at those intersections that we've been discussing. We're going to estimate the 20-year traffic projection at those intersections. And then we are going to compute the level of service at each intersection for AM and PM peak hours. We're going to evaluate whether or not we would want to add dedicated auxiliary turning lanes at each. Analyze warrants for the installation of two-way versus multi-stop control for all three intersections, and whether or not a traffic signal would be warranted. And we're not talking about just now, we're talking about 20-year projections. And then based on all that, we will recommend improvements if necessary at one or all of those, and come up with a conceptual design of what that would look like, and a preliminary opinion of the probable construction costs associated with those. And then we'll compile that in a letter. So that's our study. And so it's awesome to get more grant dollars to help figure out your city. I'm glad to see this come through, and be glad to answer any questions you have.
First off, are there any questions on the TEEP grant? Are there any questions on the scope of work? All right. Another fantastic opportunity where we can leverage the state dollar to help us out, and it couldn't be any better time with the completion of that Elm Street extension to make sure those new traffic flows don't cause additional safety issues that we just haven't foreseen or aren't addressing. So without any additional questions or comments, I'll read the resolution. Resolution number 2022-04, a resolution approving the terms of a contract between the City of Marshfield and Great River Associates Incorporated for a speed study to be conducted under the project TEEP 059 Hubble Drive at North Elm Street, North Pine Street, and North Marshall Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. And I have one more grant that I get to talk about, but we get to y'all on this one too? Okay. So we, the 604B grant, which is the flood mitigation grant, was received as well. So the way this grant works is the DNR is awarding $47,500 to SimCog for the purpose of planning in our city. We did release a press release. It went out today. Anyone? When did the press release go out?
I think it may have went out today.
Probably went out
Yeah,
today.
so-
Okay. So that's the reason it's not included in your packet, but it was just a brief synopsis and I added a quote to the bottom of it. You will likely see some more of these from my particular perspective, trying to advertise our city and push out the work that we're doing a little bit more and in some other areas. So specifically, I've targeted this one to hit the Springfield Business. Mel, can you tell us anything else on
Sure.
this one?
Sure. So it's like the mayor said, it's a grant of $47,500. We applied for it in July of last year. Along with that $47,500, there's $5,000 in Marshfield matching funds. 2,500 of that is cash, and then 2,500 of that is city resources in labor and equipment use to do the project. And then what you'll be getting for that study is that we're going to look, or this isn't necessarily a Great River project. We helped you guys to apply for and get this project. But as far as what engineer will do this, we'll have to compete with everybody else. So we'll get our day to do that. But whoever does it, this is what the study is supposed to do. It's supposed to look at 5 areas that you've got stormwater issues within town, analyze the problem, come up with a solution and a cost estimate essentially. And those areas are Sunshine Street between Burford and St. Charles, Washington Street between Allen and White Oak, the area around the Frisco ball field, Marshall and Bedford, and Locust and Julian. So those are some areas that you had big problems. It'd be nice to figure out some ways to fix it. You know, those might end up being big capital projects, or the solution may be something that your own staff can start implementing over time.
So we've looked at these areas. I mean, I've been here over 2 decades and they've been problems since before I was here. And so problem with stormwater is they're so expensive to take care of. And so you don't really understand what issues you have or what the fix to those issues can be until you really dive into it. So a few years ago, I had approached a different board at the time about trying to get some money to do a stormwater master plan, which is something we still need to do. The problem with some of those plans, with some master plans, is some of them have a shelf life. These don't. The stormwater is not going to get any better in the places that already have a problem. That's why we have such stringent stormwater regulations now. And so we're actually going through the process of updating those. But this is a good jump start to not only look and see what those issues are and what could be resolved, but this shouldn't be looked at as a small thing. This is something that the residents in those areas have not only asked for because it's a aesthetic issue. It's a real problem. Anybody that's driven over there whenever it's been raining, you know it is a big problem in all of these areas. But it even goes a little bit farther than that. So whenever it rains, all those sewer lines that are sitting over there, that water's just pouring into the manholes. And a lot of those people, by default or on purpose or not, their cleanouts are off. And so whenever it sits like that for days, or in wet seasons where it may be a week or 2, and if they're underwater, every bit of that's running down into our treatment plant. So this could be a big solution to I&I as well. So this is a really big deal. We're not going to come out of this with a project necessarily that we can afford to do, but identifying it as part of it so that we can even know. I mean, we've already talked about the water and sewer rates and where we're going with that. This would be a whole different fund, but we have to know what we could even do, what we could do in-house, what we could do contracting out. So it's a great deal.
The grant agreement is between SimCog and DNR, so there will be no approval of that on our level. And we've already budgeted the $2,500 in like-kind expense, or not the like-kind, in the cash expense.
We'll get into the budget for that in the amendment. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on that project? No, thank you.
Congratulations. That's a big grant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. it is noteworthy. We applied for that once before, last year, 2 years ago for a different project. And we were that close. It just didn't score well enough. So we changed the criteria, we changed what we wanted to apply for it with. And thank goodness it was awarded.
All right. Number 11, we got authorization to purchase replacement pump for lift station 6. Sam?
So back towards the back of your packet, there's a couple of quotes. Lift station 6, which is out on North Marshall, which is the one that we would love to get rid of someday and allow more flow, just a direct flow down to the plant, but that's gonna take a bore under the interstate. It's gonna, anyway, it's a lot further out than what we can deal with right now. So luckily you guys had approved for a spare pump. As I've kind of tried to explain in the past, not all pumps are interchangeable with every lift station. Luckily, the one that went out was, but now we've got everything. Now we've got all of our pumps in. We don't have one on the shelf. Just so happens that we had another pump go down this week since I've talked to you all. So that pump has not been rebuilt, the one that is out of another lift station. So we're gonna hopefully be able to just rebuild that one. So we'll either be taking care of that with our maintenance dollars, or I'll be bringing that back to you guys for your approval. So what I'm looking for tonight, obviously it exceeds my purchasing authority, is for the approval for the KSB pump for lift station 6.
Any questions for Sam on this particular item? Not, I'm looking for a motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now we get in fun one. City Hall update.
Thanks, Mel.
Thank you.
Well,
And we're going to turn this over to Steve primarily. But I have been.
This is what the chairs.
Everybody
is
all night.
Everybody is asked.
So just to kind of set the stage here, we started with, hey, what are our other options, right? When everybody came to the board and all of us agreed that we thought we could do something here, even though all of us had many different ideas on what that might look like. Okay. So once we hired Steve and we sat down and came up with the ever-growing list of projects for Steve to tackle, this was one of the priorities that we asked him to approach. So this is an amazing job that he has put together that allows us to not only reconfigure our current space, but expand, still using the land that we own here, and to do it in a multi-phase process that I think will be very economical and allow us to hopefully do the majority of this project debt-free. Steve?
So what I want you to see right here is this is the existing building. Okay, and we are in this space right here.
I'm gonna, don't mind it if staff comes around.
Yeah,
That's fine. That's
Okay.
fine. I wanted it close enough that you guys could see it, so you didn't have to squint necessarily. Okay.
I won't bite tonight. Come on.
So what I did was I looked at the square footage that we had in the building. I also took the needs analysis that was put together by BKD to see what were the spaces that they allocated that we needed. Then I took my own experience of actually working here and seeing how everything really works and included some areas that they didn't even include. One of the unique things about this is, as Natalie said, it can be done in phases. And so that is a big plus for us. And what I want to do is I just want to walk you through this new building. See if I can get over here. So,
I can't see.
I'm sorry.
Come
So
You gotta sit on my lap.
this is
There's something
the
sticking
new
out.
entrance
We're ignoring COVID on this one.
coming
Come
into the
cuddle.
vestibule area. And in that space, there will be a window where you can pay for water bill. But there's also a drive up window, and the drive up moves over here on this side. So we're taking the drive through that we have here, we're moving on the other side. And when I get to the site plan, you're gonna see why, because it makes a lot more sense than having people have to drive all the way around this building to go to the drive up, okay? So then we have this access, and what we're trying to do with this plan is, number one, we're trying to separate staff from public. We know COVID, the issues that we had with that, but also we have to look at security as well. And the other thing you're gonna see in here is you're gonna see lots of glass. And the glass is so we can look across the building, we can see people, we can see them here, we can see them there, we can see them coming in the door. So it's not like it is now where you have to step outside of your office, and look around, you can see anybody coming down the hall. So from this vestibule, then we can come into a lobby area. In this lobby, there's actually another window off of the city clerk. Because the city clerk deals with cemetery plots, so people have to come and get those. So they never go into the office. They have a window right there. And then this is all glass, so you can see through and you can see out. Okay. So on this side, we've got administrative assistant space. We've got the city clerk space. We've got the administrator space. And again, you see glass. So that if you're walking here, you can look in there, you can see administrators in, if he's with someone, you know what's going on. If you need to speak with him, you know that you can see if he's available. We also have a door here that can go right into that area. But we have a door here if you need to go on back to another area back there. So again, these doors would be locked during the day. Wouldn't be any reason to have those open, but we would also have some seating in here. So if people needed to wait, it would be a lot better than what we have right now, where we have the one little chair and 64 square feet. And you have people coming in paying, and it is not comfortable. I know from experience, because I've sat in there several times waiting. So then off of the administrator's office is a conference room. But this conference room can actually be accessed this way as well, okay? So that, for example, let's say Sam has something going on in here, but he's getting ready to go to a meeting here. We can guide everybody in here, and then he just steps in to have the conference, and then everybody can go out. So this is kind of flexible because it can also be used for other meetings, keep the door shut, and go in and out. Outside of here is public restrooms, a janitor's area, a council lobby area, which you can actually have some functions in that. You have some seating in that for waiting. And then this is a big addition over here. And this addition is the council chamber, storage for all the tables and chairs, and a staircase to go down to a full basement that we can house all of our records. So it's for storage. And that's something that we need. It would also be fireproof because it would be encased in concrete. It would also be a place in case you had something going on here, you needed a storm shelter, you'd have a place you can go right down those steps, you would have that. So this area right here could be used by other groups, civic groups, if they wanted to meet. So that's a big plus right there, okay? So let's go on through. You see this section right here, that's an addition to the south side of the building. And in that, obviously you have the collector's office, and there's space for 4 people to work there. They have their own counter, their own copier, and they actually have room for expansion, okay? Then next door is storage for them, which includes all of the office supplies because they take care of those. Plus there would be a small safe in there so they can put their cash drawers in, so that they don't have to go all the way over here to the vault, okay? Next to that is the finance office. And we would add a window, little,
There are people or a portal.
Then next to that is the planning office. and there's storage for that as well. Then outside here this is the coffee space. This is only a half wall, so you're not enclosed. You have counter space, you have upper cabinets, lower cabinets, and then space for copiers and tables and things like that. The idea is that if you're making a copy and somebody comes in, you can see. So if you're waiting for somebody or whatever, that's the idea of keeping this all glass, all open, okay? And behind here is more storage. And this storage is for the clerk because they don't have enough storage. And that way they can have their storage right here. There's also a back way if the administrator needs to get out of the building without being seen, he can slip through there. Okay, we think of everything. Janitor's closet right here is the janitor's closet that we have right now. No change. The vault is the same vault we have, except we're moving the door from here out to the hall so that more people can access it without having to go through somebody else's office. And that's the way it is right now. And a lot of times we interrupt them because we're going to get minutes or need to look up ordinances or whatever. So we'd have that door right there. Nothing else changes in that. We still have the women's restroom, still have the men's restroom exactly like they are, except for finishes. We would update all the finishes so we wouldn't have the 70s blue and pink. Is that what the women's is? That pink? Okay, so we would do that. Then on back here, we've got a vestibule area. We've got more storage, and this storage is actually for outside storage. We don't have a place for snow melt, shovels, things like that. So we have to drag them through the building. This way you'd have them right there so you can just go right outside the door. And the idea behind this is we're moving the court to this building. So the court comes here, and by doing that, now we've got room for expansion for the police department, which they need up there. So we get rid of using that space. We completely separate the police and court, completely separate them. So we have it here. And then this is called a flex space right now, but it is for the court clerk. And there would be a window here. So if somebody needed to come in and pay, they would come right into this vestibule, pay. This door would be locked. They couldn't come in here. That door would be locked unless we've got court going on. The idea of having this door here is that my understanding is sometimes the city attorney meets with people when they come in here, so they can just come right in there and meet while court's going on. So we keep it all right here, okay? Then we've got a door, and this is the room that we're in right now. But one of the things that we're doing is we're creating a break room. We don't really have a break room. We do take breaks in here, but it's an awful big space for us to do that. And by doing this, I can actually set up a kitchen there, and my plumbing goes right into where the plumbing is right now. So I'm not having to saw cut anything. It'll go right into there. So I've got a break room. That space right there, that's for the pop machine, so it's not at the door where you're trying to get in. Adjacent to this, that is the superintendent's office, which is something else that we want to move in here so that we can have expansion for that space as well. Then over here, the building department. This is set up and it has a window here too, because if you've ever been in this building when contractors come in, they don't always have the cleanest feet and they track a lot. Well, this way they come right in this back door. We've got a vestibule there. They can take care of anything they need with the building department. If they need to have a conference, just go right here and there's a conference room. So you can come out here and go in that way. So this door would be locked. So again, we're trying to keep it secure for the employees, but have easy access for the public to come in and do their business. So that's the building department. You can see it's a little larger than what the needs analysis said because they didn't think about the big drawings having to be laid out and reviewed. They didn't consider that because based on the square footage they gave, you could only have just a regular desk and then some filing cabinets, and that was it. The other thing I've done is I put in storage, and this storage is to hold all the plans. I don't know if you realize how big sets of plans can get for these projects that we have. And then trying to retrieve them when you need to look something up. And so having storage in here, we can have bins, you can have those set in there, you can have it all tagged and be able to get to those. Back here's another flex space. That could be an office, that could be a small conference room. It's just a flex space. And then back here is called a conference room, okay? Now, I show you all of that to say these labels can be changed. For instance, so you saw that Parks Department wasn't in here because Parks Department will be moving when we have the new facility. We don't know for sure when that will be, but we anticipate that this will happen before that happens. So to do that, this is Parks Department, and this is Parks Director's office. They still have the window that they need for registrations, people come in, and this becomes building regulations. So we've got the flexibility. So we know Monica takes care of all the finances right now, but in the future, as the city grows, there is a need that we might have an assistant or even another full-time. So what do? Well, right now, Monica's here. Monica would move here. The assistant would move here. So we still have them next to each other. And so then when the Parks Department moves out, this person goes there because they are connected to the building department with zoning questions and all of that, because that is the planning office. That's me. So I move back there to work with him. The other part that is good about this is that we see that we can do the construction in phases so that we do not have to move completely out of this building while construction is going on, because we've got areas that we can block off and still function, okay? So I'm going to show you something.
You'll notice everywhere where he's got sectioned off with doors. I mean, that's who the public interacts with the most. But also the noteworthy thing is that with COVID and with who knows what else is coming, we were limited. I mean, everybody was doing all their business through just the drive-through. And so this would allow people to come in and do their business with those offices.
So if you will notice that this is color coded. And the reason why it's color coded is because these would be the phases. So there are some options on those phases, but we're looking at phase, and I'm calling it A, phase B, phase C, and phase D. Next page, which is the good stuff. If you look on the left-hand side, you will see space. These are all the spaces that are needed or we have. And the next column is existing square footage that we actually have in this building. So you'll see that we have 4,102 square feet. That's in our current building. The next column is the needs analysis square footage. And you will see, go all the way down, and they said we need 8,738 square feet. That's to meet what we need today. And they were very, very limited on expansion. Very limited on expansion, 8,738. The next column is the difference. So that's the difference between what we have what they said we needed. So if you add that 4636 to 4102, you get the 8738. So that's the additional square footage needed to meet the needs analysis. Then the next column is this plan, this new plan. And you will see it says 9,980 square feet. One thing I want you to really look at is right down here, it says city storage. You'll see 1,700 square feet, okay? That is the basement of this. That's where that's coming from. So it's not necessarily that much square footage added on, but that is part of that. Because on down there, you will see council chamber, 1,700 square feet. Okay, so that's up above, the storage is down below. So then you go over to your phase A, and you will see the square footage that is in phase A, which is within this room. Okay, so those spaces, and I've broken it down to how much square footage, and it's 1,131. So then we put, at the bottom, you'll see construction cost per square foot over there on the left. You run that across, and under this one, it says $100. So we're figuring $100 because we're going within this existing space and making the modifications. And so then you see a price down at the bottom, and that is $113,100 for that. That would be for that phase. The next one over is phase B. And you see all the square footages there, and that is all the square footages on this addition. And that is figured at $200 a square foot. And so then you have that amount of $362,000. Okay, so that's another phase. And keep in mind, each one of these can be done independently. Because the way that we've looked at this building and the logistics of it, that we can pick and choose how we do this, okay? Now, I will tell you that you have to do either A or B first before I can do an addition here, because I've got to get rid of the drive-through on this side, okay? So then the next one is phase C. So that is basically all of this area that's inside the existing building. And you can look and see the square footage of that is 2,259 square feet and figured at $100 a square foot because a lot of it we're reusing. I figured all the square footage in here, but I'm just changing out finishes. I'm not changing. I don't have to move any plumbing. I'm not moving the vault. I'm not moving the plumbing in here, you know, so that's the advantage. So that's figured at $100 a square foot. So you see that broken down as 225,900. Then the last item is this section right here. And that is the 4540. And the reason it's 4540 is I'm not adding that much square footage as a footprint. I'm adding that much square footage because that's got a full basement. That's where the additional comes. And I'm figuring that at $200 a square foot. So I'm figuring $200 first floor, $200 basement, $400 a square foot, which I know is above what that would be. But what that does is that allows us money to do all the electronics that we would want in that space, okay? And so then you see that amount down there, that's 908,000. Then you take those numbers, you add them across, total is $1,690,000.
I'll interject real quick.
Yep.
Just as a reminder, we did put in a letter of interest on getting a FEMA grant to put a shelter on this building. That's that addition right there. Now, we won't know this year. We'll be lucky to know next year whether our interest turns into an actual invitation to apply. We won't know if we get that grant for yet another year down past that. So that particular area could have some opportunistic funding to help us. but we're not gonna know that way.
So do we need to wait? Will we have to wait to do that until after? No. So we could just get paid back potentially for that then.
Well, can't say that we would
Yeah.
necessarily get paid back. If the construction's already ongoing, most of the time they won't.
Okay.
It from the grant. But we've got 3 phases to get through
First,
before we can do that anyway.
Okay.
We have time.
So this is the site plan, and you got a copy of the site plan on the last page. See, by taking the drive-through out here and putting it on this side, coming in, you go through and out. So circulation is right here. We've got additional parking here. It's a one-way because of the angle. We've got parking here, we've got parking there, and we have a way out right there. We also have parking back here, because you have to remember that we're going to need the parking because of the court being here. So right now, we have 33 parking spaces. This plan shows 43. So we've actually got 10 more parking spaces in this plan than we actually have on our site right now. Okay. So what this also does is we have this huge parking lot over here. So any functions that could happen here, you can park right here and walk in this way. You don't have to park over here to walk in. So we've got an entrance here into the city hall. The other thing that's nice is we've got walls and spaces to put some signage. Right now, we don't even have city hall on this building. It doesn't mention city hall. So we can put city hall right there. This end of this wall is a great billboard for the city. We can put signage down there. We can light it up. It'd be great coming down Marshall. You can see that. We've also got room over here. We've got walls to put the city court. So we've got that. Another thing to remember is if this was done based on the size of this, you could have the Board of Alderman meetings, planning and zoning, you could have those in there. Unless you were going to have a hot topic and you knew you're going to have a big crowd, then you would have it someplace else. But also looking at, that as an option so that we don't necessarily have to move everything to another site. Because one of the things that we talked about is electronics and having to get it set up so that we can use it if we have it at another site.
And that's where I think it goes where with you, Robbie, what you were asking about, would we have to do that, or how would we wait? As long as the court space is built, it would be about half the size of this room, which in most cases is just fine, unless we do have something. But yes, that's what we would want to wait on to see if that was an option or not.
Okay.
So, questions? I know I've thrown a lot at you and I know it's late. It's past my bedtime.
Do you have your elevation?
That's what your main concern was, what? Fixing the facade?
I have it. Didn't want to show.
Okay, that's fine. It can wait.
Okay.
One of the things that I
Here's my
like.
reason. And this, I do this.
Yeah.
With most everybody. I didn't do it with you. I did show this, but I do this because we really need to know if this is the plan we like. Do we like the way it's set up? Then I can generate the elevations. But if you come to my office, I can show.
The elevations are really, really nice, but one of the things as we went through materials and we went through the elevations and we talked about all the pictures, a lot of Steve's plan has planned to preserve this exterior brick as an interior surface. So there's going to be more or less an industrial type feel through the building. And as we raise ceilings and maintain that structural look throughout, we've even talked about the old vault door swinging around or trying to get one of the other historical vaults in town, get the door off of them. Again, just adding to that feel, but that was the overall feel of this.
like this back parking and the new big, yeah, that back there, and then the new big addition. Do they, or how much do they encroach out on the park,
That is the parking lot that's out.
the original? So
Yeah.
Yes,
that
that's
doesn't.
it. This is our property line right here.
What about in the back?
That's the existing drive we have.
Yeah,
Okay.
that bush right there is, the trail's right on the other side of it.
Okay. So it doesn't,
No, it
No.
doesn't.
No.
grass to concrete.
The angle there, that's the drive-through
And it
and
keeps
that
people,
median.
and it keeps people from driving around the building.
Yes, yeah. But what you need to understand about this building is, you see how high the ceiling is in here? In the other part of the building, the ceiling comes down just to top of the window. But the joists are up above this, and they're at the same height all the way through this building. So in other words, the rest of the building could have a ceiling this high. So what we're thinking is, what would happen if you took the grid out and it was just the joists and you had ductwork exposed,
Like an industrial look.
a very
Yeah.
industrial look. Yeah, and it doesn't mean that later on, you know, if that's not the end thing, and people want to change, you can add the ceiling. That's simple. But it's just an idea, just an idea.
Yeah.
But by using the existing brick and with that particular elevation, you can use different brick types together, and you see it all over everywhere. That's got stone in it. You can see it's got a clock tower, and the idea is that's glass block. And so that changes colors. And so depending on the month it is, you can have a color for breast cancer awareness. You can, you know, whatever. And so then the city becomes this icon of changing. So,
Sometimes with that industrial, don't you have sound problems? Or is there ways to handle that?
there's ways to handle that. You know, like right now, we've got carpet in here in squares. I would certainly recommend that, because that way if you get a stain, you take off one piece, not the whole thing. So that helps with your acoustics. The other thing you could do is you can actually put acoustics on the walls. And they can actually be things that would be usable. For instance, I've seen where they've done like pieces that advertised things in the city. Okay, so it's actually a picture, but it is really for the acoustics. And I've done that in gymnasiums where they had wood floor. But they also wanted to do lectures in there. Well, can you imagine doing a lecture in a gymnasium? So what we did was we actually got these panels. They made them themselves. They're very easy to make. They made them themselves. It's for a church camp in Lebanon that nobody's heard of. It's been there for 50 years. Cedars Camp. See? 650 acres of camp, and nobody's heard of it. But anyway, so we did that. Works perfect. Works perfect. So there are ways to compensate for that.
We do happen to have a manufacturer in town as well.
Yeah, we do.
What would your recommendation be on, it looks like if you did B first, then that would give us somewhere to go and not have to go. So is that,
That is an option.
what do you think would work best? Do you think it'd work best to go A, B, C, D, or?
I'd do A and B together.
Well, and that's an option too. If I was to do one, A or B, I would be more prone to go B first. Only because once I have this,
Yeah.
everybody that's over here can move, okay? Because administrator could even move in here temporarily while we did this. And once you have this done, you've got oodles of offices, because they're
You
just.
don't have an
like-
escape route.
If we
You'll
did
have to
A and B
behave
together,
or go
where
out the
would we
window.
meet at? during that time?
We would meet at the community
Monica
room
said
at Woodville.
Okay,
Yeah, so we've already talked about that too. So we've got,
options.
we have options, and I think that's the great thing about the plan, is we have options. It's not like we have to do this and then we have to do this, but we have some options. And you can also look at the, the different costs, and you can start adding them up. But the nice thing is that if we can do it in stages, then you don't have to come up with that cost all at once.
And A, B, and C, we've got cash. Those are cash projects, guaranteed. Now, when we get to D, that's when we have to consider whether or not the grant is an actual opportunity. Do we want to identify some debt? Do we want to make to look at the cash that we have on hand or save more? I mean, those things will take a different budgeting approach because we don't have 1.6. But we're not that far from it.
Yeah.
All the furniture included in this price.
Furniture you got right now, you just move it on in.
Well, you have to have more.
But I'm really
Yes.
thinking this.
But you got more offices and stuff, we're gonna have to.
Well, these make nice desks. You know, I mean, if you got the space, you can work with about anything, really. But, you know, as we start to do the expansions and we can look at furniture and stuff like that, but.
Steve, are the pillars in the front, are they square or are they round?
There's no pillars in the front.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it. Yeah. So.
And all you're doing is just changing the color on the soffit, right?
Oh, that mushroom's coming down.
And one of the interesting things, and you guys may not know this, but those are not structural. Those little pieces that pop out, that's not structural. That comes out.
What did they do that for?
Because back in 78,
That was
that was
in
an
style.
element, and how this room was set up, that was the front. That's why there's a plug in the floor.
Okay.
So
That's where the table
the
was.
table set there,
It was like
they brought
that.
these out, so they had that front.
It was like that until just a few years ago.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, when I delivered the audit. that's-
Yeah, and so they did that, so every time they did a little window, they did one of those. You see one, you see two in Sam's office, because he's got two windows. You see one in Karen's, you see one in Julie's, and then right there, you've got one. Do you have one in yours?
I do. Well, I have
Yeah.
a window, but I don't.
Do you have that little wall coming out, and then the filing cabinets on the other side?
Yes.
Yeah, and then the entrance, they did in there. And that was just a architectural feature that was popular in
70s.
Just total curiosity, did you freehand that?
Oh, yeah. Well, that whole drawing, which you can see my sketch on the, when I presented to the mayor, it was like that. That's my freehanding. So that kind of gives you an idea of what I'm thinking in my mind of what this can be. Okay? Any other questions?
What do we want for next steps on this project?
When do we start?
I like A and B together too, just because it gets us. You can't do A, B, and C together at one time, I don't think so. Not very
We could
easily.
do
yeah.
A and B and an alternate to C.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you would have to do that in stages.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. When we're doing work here, these restrooms are gonna be important because we don't have these yet.
Yeah.
Okay? And you don't want them to have to go into little
Porta potties and,
porta potties outside.
yeah, I like the A and B together and then get those completed, then come back and do the C and then see where we're at on that.
Right.
You know, I understand it in the bathroom, it's really stripping them out, you know, taking the tile off, taking the floor tile out. We're gonna get new fixtures. We're gonna do flush valves. We're gonna get a new 2-inch line to the building, so we can do that. I know, you know, that's taken out, but the nice thing is we're not having to redo all the piping. The piping is already in there. So that's the nice thing. Anytime that you aren't moving the fixtures, it's a lot cheaper. You know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's why this plan works well, even when we add this break room, because we have a sink already there. We're just turning it and the sink will flow right back into the drain that's there.
Looks nice.
All right, thank you. I'm not hearing any additional comments, so we'll let Steve put his information back together. Any other direction you need on this, Sam?
No.
Okay. Absolutely. Start going into construction documents, I imagine, in order to,
Are you saying for this project?
what are the
What-
next steps?
Oh, the next step, I would do elevations of all of it and
Okay.
then implement windows, because if you look at your plan, I didn't put windows in because again, I want to make sure that this is the plan you want. Yes, in the elevation, I did show some windows and I have an idea of where windows would go, which we would add some windows so that offices would have light, natural light, and they would be bigger than what we have now. That would be the other thing. Again, I'm wanting it so that we can see out and people can see in. That's the idea, that it's safer that way. Then we have the little strips, almost the jailhouse. We just don't have the bars.
Okay.
So,
Okay, well then when he has additional documents ready, we will put it back on the agenda and bring those items to you. Okay, thank you.
mhm.
Next item on the agenda is discussion on paint equipment. Sam?
I'll keep this real short. We had budgeted $20,000 for some paint equipment. Richard and Brandon, Richard and I used to do all of our painting around town. And so I asked him to go with Brandon to go look at some painting equipment to see what we wanted and see what we needed. The old paint machine that we had was great for the time. And that's what we kind of thought we were getting back into. And they went around and looked at a few things and they ended up at the city of Lebanon. And they have got the equipment they use, we could use on just about every, when I say just about everything, I don't know that we would contract anything out. And so I had budgeted money in this year's in 2022 to contract out for the striping of Hubble Drive, because now it's ours. And so we also looking at getting prices for the new Elm Street. And so I'll be bringing those back to you, but didn't even know this equipment existed on this level. Most of the time you see those big striping trucks. I mean, they are huge. I mean, they look like our Vector.
Yeah.
These are a miniature version of that that's go on a skid unit that slide in the back of a truck. And just really, really slick. But because it's late and because I'm not ready to even ask you to pull the trigger, even if we had budgeted the amount that we would need. Just want to give you a little bit of update on that. A new machine like that, like I said, we budgeted 20,000 plus, I don't know, another 20,000 for painting. A brand new machine's around $75,000, which is more than what I thought it was going to be. But I will tell you that when I bring it back, if that's the direction we're going to go, I'll have an ROI for you for saying, you know, if we contract it out for 5 years, it would pay for itself or whatever it would be. But the functionality of it is hands above what we could do with the walk behind machine. And so when we get ready to do it, I'll bring Richard back and we'll do a presentation on it. And we'll see if you guys have any appetite for it this year. If you just want to wait and contract things out, it's not going to hurt anything. We can go ahead and contract things out this year and put it in the budget for next year. And you guys will have the say so whether how you want to move forward. But I do not think that the original machine that we budgeted for the 20, I do not think that that's the way that we want to go. So would you disagree with any of that, Richard?
No.
Okay. All right.
You want to go up to this other.
Yeah.
Okay, truck bed and setup.
Okay, so we had the opportunity for that F550 that we bought from Webster. It came, I had no expectation or even interest of bringing an expenditure like that to you In the time frame that I did, I wanted to really wait, and Finance Committee, just full transparency, Finance Committee had recommended not to buy anything, not to spend any money until the rates were adjusted. And that came after even my recommendation that I wouldn't even ask you guys to do so, but an opportunity is an opportunity. And so we purchased that truck. And so now we have a truck that is just sitting there with no bed on it, which is just fine, but it's unusable. It'll throw rocks through the back window, and really we just don't have any purpose for it without a bed on it. So kind of along those same lines, had an opportunity present itself just this week, actually just yesterday, really. In fact, I've got text messages about it now because we're needing some information. But we have been looking at some truck beds for that truck. And so you can buy a standard flatbed for a pickup, I don't know, $3,500 to $4,000. And that's just fine for most applications. What we're going to use it for is not most applications. We had budgeted $100,000 for a 1-ton dually truck with a full dump bed on it. After reevaluating that, the bed that I had looked at was 40 grand just for that truck. And so the problem with that is that you lose the functionality of it being a flatbed. In order for it to have a swinging tailgate, there has to be 2 permanent mounted pillars in the back corners in order for that to work. And then the sides would fold down, or you could take the sides off. I really like the truck, I really do, but you also lose the functionality of being able to pull a gooseneck trailer with it. The sides are in the way, and so you just can't do it. With this heavier equipment that we have, we've reevaluated, we've talked about it. And I think that don't know that the need for that particular truck goes away for the future, but the purpose for right now for what we need, I think what we would be way better off to move forward with is to go ahead and put a flatbed on this truck, a heavy built, probably a custom built bed with a scissor lift underneath of it. So it will still have the dumping capability. It'll still have a gooseneck ball in it. We'll put sides on it that we can remove. So it won't actually be a dump truck, but it will work for our tight spaces for that mini. So that was one of the purposes why we bought it. And so it would really be a very functional vehicle for every department that we have. So the bed that we would be looking at for the bed and installation be somewhere between $11,000 and $14,000. And that includes the lift, that includes all the electronics that go with it. And so that's a turnkey deal. So that was originally why I set this on the agenda. In the last couple of days, so during the snow event, I had visited with a local vendor and I said, hey, I ran into him on the parking lot and said, hey, if you ever decide to sell some of your snow equipment, let me know. And I said, we've got a couple of pickups now, we might be interested. And so talked to him a little bit more and he said, I actually trade mine in every year. He said, so mine never get over a year old. He said, for tax purposes and for maintenance purposes, that's just how I choose to do it. And it's Master Trimmers over here in town. So it is. So he called me this week. So everybody around here, when I say that, I mean, everybody that I've talked to that does snow removal, they all go to Chicago to a certain vendor to get all of their stuff. It's cheaper, it's worth their time, and they've always got things in stock. He bought one this year, he bought one last year. He's actually looking to get rid of a couple of spreaders that would work on these pickups. Our spreaders for our trucks are dump trucks. He was going to take these up there and trade them in because his last event, he was going through so much material that he was just constantly loading. So he's trading those in on some for a dump truck. So in essence, he's offered to sell us those for what the trade would be. And so those beds new are $6,000 up there in Chicago, and I've looked them up online, and that's what we could buy them for as well. And so they were going to give him $4,000 or less trade. And so when I say less, they haven't gotten back with him on one of them. I was going to come and approach the board at some point in the year and we had it in the budget to set 2 trucks up for snow removal. So there's that side of it. So what I'm asking the board for tonight is in the end, I'm going to ask you to approve up to a certain dollar amount to set this truck or these trucks up with the proper equipment. The other side of that is he trades his plows in every year as well. And so these are the same exact plows that we had looked at in the budget cycle. And so those snow plows are right around $10,000 a piece. They usually give him between $600 and $6,500 a piece for his plows every year. Again, I'm not getting in his business, that's his business, but he trades them in every year. It just makes sense for him. So he's offered again to sell those to us at his cost or at the trade-in value for those. All in all, if we were to buy the equipment and everything for both, we'd be saving about $10,000 of what we would be buying new. We have been out there and we've locked eyes on them. I mean, they're there. They look like what you would expect. I mean, you can name the snow events we had at the end of last year and this year, and they've been used very, very little. They've got the original cutting blades on them, and I mean, they're not worn down at all. So with all of that being said, if you add up the 2 beds, the 2 spreader beds, the 2 plows, the 1 bed, even figured at $14,000, it comes up around $36,000, give or take. What I would be looking for tonight, let me back up. This is contingent on his vendor up there being able to find him plows tomorrow, and it's a seasonal thing, and so they don't really have any in stock up there, but they're looking. My recommendation would be for you guys to approve up to $40,000 for setting these trucks up and for the snowplow equipment. The reason I say that is that at some point, even if it doesn't work out for right now, at some point he will be trading those plows in, and by you guys approving that, that would allow us to purchase those and be able to move on those at that time. If you look in your budget book, you go to your budget book and you go to the growth areas. Up in the top, you'll see the 1-ton utility dump truck at $100,000. We paid $30,000 for the truck. I was anticipating spending 55 to 60, and then 40 for the other bed. So therefore, the $100,000. You'll also see the third line item down is a snowplow equipment of $21,000. So there's sufficient money there based on the budget that was presented. And so again, there'll be no hard feelings. There'll be we will continue on. I hadn't planned on approaching you guys with this until after the 6-month financials, not even just getting through the rate increase. But an opportunity is an opportunity. It's very similar to it's the same equipment that we're going to be buying. It would be brand new, but we would also be spending $10,000 more. But I would be approaching you guys come August, September anyway, to be buying them. So if you want to do all of it, if you want to do a portion thereof, I will tell you that I would like to get a bet on it regardless, just so that it's not just sitting there. So, but again, if you do not want to do anything with it until after the rates, or until a certain date, or until after June or July, I'm good. But an opportunity presented itself. Here we are.
Is the main difference between these used items and a new item being warranty?
They would still be under warranty now. I asked him that. They would still be under.
So they're
warranty now.
transferable?
Mhm. They're still under warranty now. Now, they may just have a year warranty on them. I don't know how long the warranty is on them, but he said that everything that we'd be getting would still have a warranty on it.
How long would those typically last? I mean, if we bought them, how long do you expect that we would be able to use them for?
So when I started, we used all steel beds, and they had a rubber conveyor in the bottom of them, and they were terrible. They rusted out. We patched, oh my gosh, we cut them out. We patched them every year, replaced all the bearings and this and that. So everything we have now, we got an opportunity to buy the stainless ones from MoDOT, and I mean, they're bulletproof. I mean, they're just the best. These are a poly, so they're not going to rust out. Everything in the bottom of them are stainless steel. The motors, the wheels and everything else are seal bearings. Everything else is plastic and everything else is plastic and stainless and aluminum. I'd hate to guess, but I mean, 10
They should
10
last-
years?
They should last a long time.
15 years?
And they're, whatever could go wrong is.
It's all replaced. I mean, it's basically a
very
very heavy poly tub with a stainless steel auger and a stainless steel tray in the bottom of it that wheels it out the back and it drops it onto a thing.
Is that what they had on like their 1-ton trucks? Okay. I know.
He runs 13 of them right now.
Okay.
Yep.
I know what you're talking about then.
Yep.
What's the life cycle on a blade? On the plow?
Well, I mean, all I can base it off of is our dump trucks.
Mhm.
30 years.
We
I
don't
mean,
have to get rid of
you know what I'm saying? They've got cutting blades on them too. They've got cutting blades on them.
You
These are,
replace the cutting.
these are electric. These are electric where ours are hydraulic or driven off the transmission. So you're gonna have electric motors gonna go bad. You're gonna have connections go bad. But I mean, you can it's all wiring harnesses and controls and all those little things are, okay, so like the spreader controls in there. Asking them what happens if things go out, they're $250. That controls. You get into the dump trucks, the controls go out of those is 10,000. So I mean, you get what I'm saying. It's a much smaller investment, but the life cycle is probably going to be, the lifespan is probably going to be shorter than what we run. But if you take care of them, a while.
You might talk about the grader real quick, just to.
Yeah, so during the snow event, we had our fair share of equipment issues, just like we always do. This time a little bit more significant. We've got a 2008 Champion grader. We bought a small. We used to have a big grader. Some of you remember that it was a 1969 model, and we basically ran it till the wheels fell off, and that is not a joke. It had one fall off coming down the road, and that was when we kind of retired. But this one here, we went with a much smaller machine. One of the reasons why we went with a much smaller machine is because it was self-propelled in the front end. So it was basically a 6-wheel drive. It's got two wheels in the back, 2 in the front, one set in the front. So it's basically 6-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive, whatever you want to call it. That helps pull that moldboard. And so without it, even doing ditches and dirt work makes it very, very difficult. So multiply that with snow and ice on, and the thing is just, when it works, you can do probably a third of the town in the time that the rest of the equipment can do the other 2/3 combined. You don't have to have another piece of equipment out there to clean intersections. You guys probably all saw backhoes out there cleaning intersections. You don't see that with the grader when everything's working. It went out at some point through the snow, and so it was just worthless getting around. Bearer of bad news, it's $14,000 to repair it. Got a hydraulic pump out in the front of it. It's hydrostatic, and so obviously everything flows through there. So that is something also that I'll be approaching you guys about for with a budget amendment as well. It's about probably $150,000 piece of equipment, getting half of its use out of it. It's got 800 hours on it. It's got no hours on it whatsoever. So if it was much older and we were talking about a piece of equipment that had the problems that some of our other ones have had and do have, we would just run it with the back wheels, and we'd use it to the full functionality that we could, or we'd be looking at trading it off. They don't. The little thing is handy as all get out. It gets in between our ditches. I mean, those big ones, they're great, but one, we don't have anywhere to store it.
great for the county.
2, I mean, they're so long, a lot of times the grader takes up the space in the ditch from driveway to driveway. So it'd be my recommendation to fix it. It's not on here tonight to approve, but I'll talk about it just a little bit more when we get into the budget amendment.
Okay, so on the truck bed and setup, first we need to discuss bed. because Sam has kind of marked that out. So do we have appetite for approving $14,000 for the purchase of a bed for the F-550? If so, I'm looking for a motion and a second.
So if I could.
Yes.
So if I could, if you're gonna go that way, what I'd be looking for is if we could go up to, because there's some stipulation, there's some different avenues that we're gonna get into on lights, on hookups, on setups. And so I don't know if you feel comfortable doing that, but I would rather do an up to. So I mean, if we can kind of tally up and see where everybody's comfort level is for dollar amount.
Okay.
That's what I would rather do than to do them individually like that.
Just the type of bed we go with, just buying the snow equipment or not buying the snow equipment, change that?
Nope. No, so I mean, no, the last thing I want you guys to do is feel any pressure. There is, if you say no, we go on and there is nobody that's gonna say boo about it. But we do have a truck that's not, it's just sitting there.
Okay, so we've gauged appetite for the bed. Let's gauge appetite for the spreader bed. And how much is that approximately?
4,000.
About $4,000 for a spreader bed used.
And we would need eventually, whether it's now, whether it's later, whether it's next year, we would need 2. So you're looking at 4,000 or 8,000 if you wanted to do anything.
And then the plow. What's our appetite there?
We're gonna have to get them at some point, so I'm fine with getting them now if we get a decent enough deal to make it worthwhile to do.
Okay, so we definitely do have room in the budget. We've budgeted 121. We've spent 30 on the truck. So the total request is an up to $40,000 for a dump bed, a spreader bed,
2 spreader beds.
2 spreader beds, up to 2 plows, and appropriate electronics and whatever else it takes to retrofit these trucks. If we're in agreement, I'm looking for a motion and second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. So we will also be looking at the only other truck I think I've shown some of you, and my goal was to come around and maybe to even take some of it for a ride if you wanted to on this last round, like I did with Natalie. But that other dump truck that you guys approved to buy from Greene County, it has turned out to be a great truck. It really has. It was a really good purchase. And so it has the capability of having a swivel blade on the front of it, where the other ones are all just a fixed plow. When appropriate, which I will not be coming to you unless there's just a steal of a deal somewhere. When appropriate, I'll bring that back if there's still room in the budget on top of what we had budgeted for these trucks to be looking for a plow. I've got my eyes out for on Purple Wave and on all of our auction sites, and so you never know, but we'll be looking for something on that at some point. But it does make a big difference.
Striping plan. You want to table this to the next meeting?
Yeah, so I was waiting on contractor prices and I didn't get them because of all the snow stuff. So wait.
Okay. Budget amendment discussion.
So I'll make this real quick. The 604B grant, we had no earthly idea that we were even still in the running for that. We applied for it, didn't hear anything about it. And then boom, in January, we found out that we were getting awarded for it. So we did not budget for that. It is a reimbursement grant, just like everything else. So we're going to spend $50,000 and we're going to get $47,500 back, leaving the $2,500 cash that we paid towards it and the $2,500 in kind that we put towards it for our labor. So in that budget amendment tonight is just a FYI that we're going to be giving this to you for a budget amendment. Any number of these expenditures are not going to kick us into a budget amendment. So meaning that we're still under on the fund level. Then we've got the lift station pump at the 13,000 that you guys approved tonight. Maybe another 13,000, depending on what this other pump is, or maybe we're hoping it'll be more in the $4,000 to $5,000 range because we're hoping we can just rebuild it. But obviously we did not, those expenditures don't push us over the budget, but they will force us to be over the budget at some point. That grader repair for $14,000. That obviously was not budgeted. Those will be general fund dollars. The meter, so on our water meters and materials. So we're finishing up, as we talked about, on the water meters, on the replacement program. We're down to a handful out of the 3,000. And so when we get down to the nuts and bolts of it, and at the end of it, we've got some meter lids that are outstanding that we need to replace so that they will read through it. We've got some additional meters and registers that we need to buy that are probably going to be outside of the contract that we had. We could go back in and try to do some kind of change order. However, the vendors have changed. The bid is no longer any good. I don't think that the SRF would allow us to do it without rebidding anything. So we're probably going to be looking at a budget amendment for that. And there's sufficient funds there in the replacement fund and in the meter fund. But we're talking about probably another $30,000 for that. And then we've got some line extensions that we're going to do, one of which I've informed you about, the fire department. We're meeting with them Tuesday. They're getting ready to go up, and they had offered to pay for the materials if we would install it. But we figured in the material, we had figured in some for materials and some for that, but we've got some water modeling on there, and the big ticket item on there is going to be boring under 00 highway. We can't cut that one. And so we'll be bringing that, we'll be bringing those to you as well in that budget amendment. So just wanted to give you a heads up of some things that we know that are coming. And there's no action on that stuff.
Okay. Last item in current business we do need to take care of, and this is the ordinance that we need to pass for the Purple Heart signage, correct, Steve? Anything that we need to know on this?
It is a standard form agreement that you have to sign for MoDOT. And in the past, they typically filled the application out, then gave it to you to do as an ordinance. This time, they need the ordinance. So we got a copy of a blank form, which we know is what they're going to use, and it just puts in specific information dealing with Marshfield, where the signs are going to go, that type of information.
Okay.
So that's what it's about.
Any questions on these? All right, I'll read the bill. Bill number 2022-04, an ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Marshfield authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for Purple Heart signage.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
East Ward Alderman John Quinn.
Aye.
East Ward Alderman J.C. Cunningham.
Aye.
West Ward Alderman Robert Fox.
Aye.
West Ward Alderman Stacy Lee.
Aye.
Second reading, bill number 2022-04, an ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Marshfield authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement with Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the Purple Heart City signage.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
East Ward Alderman John Quinn.
Aye.
East Ward Alderman J.C. Cunningham.
Aye.
West Ward Alderman Robert Fox.
Aye.
West Ward Alderman Stacy Lee.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. We will get that submitted. Under future agenda items, I have the unfinished business number 1, which is a change order that we are still waiting on. We'll also put the striping plan and cost for intersections from new business 15 into future agenda items. The other 2 items that I do know that are coming based on our December plan was some information on the leaf dump. And we have officially surpassed our 2-year limit on the trash services. It's time to have conversation, not looking for any specific direction. We've already had staff getting information from other cities. It'll be educational at this point. And we're going to have to weigh our options as we have a ballot issue that's outstanding, as we have rates that are changing, to determine whether we want to embark on changing even more, or what the ramifications would be if we didn't take action to get that under the city's umbrella at this time. So
I would add something to that. The city of Springfield is in the process of starting to look at doing that exact thing. So I think it will be interesting to kind of watch the news and see what information we hear from them, what is negative, maybe what's positive. And I can tell you the reason they gave was because they have so many properties that do not have trash service at all. And they're just dumping in their yards. So it'll be interesting to watch that.
Yeah, lots of interesting things I've never thought of when it comes to trash. But then again, I've said the same thing about sewer. So any other future agenda items that we may need to know about? If not, I'm looking for motion to adjourn. All in favor?
All right.
Thank you, guys.